Hello, everyone, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the U.S. National Finals of the Entrepreneurship World Cup. I'm Alec Wright, the Chief Innovation Officer of GSV Labs, and your host tonight for this incredible National Finals event. This is the culmination of an amazing startup competition. Over 1,300 companies applied from the United States, and now we have our top 10 US companies after a nail-biting set of semifinal events over the past 2 weeks. Today's event is a competition among these top 10 US teams to award $40,000 in cash prizes that we'll be giving out today, as well as secure the opportunity for these companies to advance to the EWC Global Finals in October. At the Global Finals, the US national winners will compete against national winners from other countries across the globe in a true entrepreneurship World Cup. At stake is $1 million in non-dilutive cash prizes and tens of millions of dollars in in-kind support. This is all part of the Entrepreneurship World Cup global competition. This year, over 150,000 startups applied from 100 plus countries, every vertical technology area, market you could imagine, and across the spectrum from the earliest idea to kind of early seed stage companies, as well as those that are onto their growth trajectory. They are all competing for $1 million in cash prizes, as we said, kind of an unprecedented platform to share their story with a global audience. This is all made possible by the MISC Foundation, the Global Entrepreneurship Network, and T-Golf, the Global Education and Leadership Foundation. Without the support of these organizations, this incredible competition would be impossible. And as always, a huge thanks from GSV Labs for making this happen. GSV Labs is the US national organizer, and it's a perfect fit for us. We're an early stage innovation platform based in Silicon Valley that's worked with hundreds of early stage companies through our innovation centers in Silicon Valley, Boston, and coming soon in Pittsburgh. In addition to our physical innovation centers, we support over 25,000 entrepreneurs across the globe with GSV Passport, our virtual innovation community and our online innovation center that provides seed and Series A startups across the globe everything they need to grow: access to investors, access to an incredible group of expert mentors, as well as nearly $1 million in free or discounted technology services to save them money and accelerate their growth. I'd love to share a little bit more about Passport with you now. Okay, maybe we'll just keep running on this. And that is Passport, our virtual innovation platform. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but we're hoping you'll come and check out the Passport platform at gsvlabs.com. We always love welcoming new members to the Passport community. And with that, we're ready to get into the national finals. We want to make sure we've got a great event tonight, an incredible group of startups. And as always, we want to give a special thank you, to the companies that are participating this evening and everything that they're competing for. We have a great group of partners that have made this possible. We always want to thank Leighton and Brex, who support a wide variety of our events. And today we want to give a special thanks to Globalization Partners, the national sponsor of the US Entrepreneurship World Cup.
What if you could easily expand your company into any new country within hours? Would you succeed faster? Globalization Partners simplifies international business by enabling you to hire teams in new countries without setting up foreign branch offices, and with software that puts onboarding and managing your global team at your fingertips. You find the talent and we put your team members on our already existing in-country payroll. With Globalization Partners, you never have to worry about the challenges that come with setting up international companies, managing payroll, or navigating benefits. We do it all. Are you ready to see how it works? Getting started is fast and seamless. First, you choose the country you want to expand into, then decide which benefits to offer. All from pre-selected, locally compliant employment contract terms. At the click of a button, we send our employment contract for you to review. Once approved, we issue the employment contract from our local entity to your candidate. Then our in-country HR team makes sure your candidate is comfortable with the terms of employment. With greater than 96% client satisfaction, you can be rest assured that your local candidate will be happy too. Our team members are always just a call away when you need personalized HR advice. By putting the world's talent at your fingertips, Globalization Partners enables you to succeed faster. Hire the world.
Another big thank you to our event sponsors and partners that make this happen. Let's get started though for the U.S. National Finals event. We have 10 great companies that are competing today for $45,000 in cash prizes, $25,000 for the first place, as well as an advance to the global finals. $10,000 for second place and an advance to the global finals, and a third place runner-up prize of $5,000 cash. Let's take a quick look at who's presenting today. We have Carol from Ellis Day Skin Science, Vipula from Sonics Medical Devices, Roberto from Coherent, Eamon from FarmSense, Sana from Rubitection, Jake from Haptic, Michael from Perch, Haley from Mito, Khalid from Legacy, and finally, Artie from Seekster. To kick off the event, we're going to start with a quick introduction and panel to our judges for tonight. We've put together a great group of judges that are going to really share a lot of perspective, and we're excited to get going and learn a little bit more about them and their background that got them to this point. So we have Nicole Sahin, CEO and founder of Globalization Partners, Nikhil Sinha, CEO of GSV Labs, and Nick Franco, COO of HMC Capital US. I'd love to get started and have our judges introduce themselves, tell a little bit about their background and what it is about the entrepreneurship ecosystem that they find so exciting. Maybe Nikhil, do you mind kicking us off?
Sure, Alec. Thanks for the introduction. As Alec mentioned, I'm CEO of GSV Labs. I've been at GSV Labs for about a little over 2 years. Before that, I was Chief Business and Chief Content Officer at Coursera, which is now the world's largest higher education platform. Before that, I spent half my life as an entrepreneur and venture investor, and the other half as an academic and academic administrator. I'm really excited to be part of the Entrepreneurship World Cup and delighted that GSV Labs has the opportunity to support the US finals as well as the global finals through the development of the EWC platform. We know that entrepreneurship is a key element in global growth and economic success. The creation of jobs in the formal sector is not enough to ensure employment benefits to people coming into the workforce from all over the world. The problem of employment has been really exacerbated recently by the global pandemic, with over 30 million people in the US alone being laid off from their jobs. Many of these people are not going to be able to go back to the jobs that they once had. So we need to find alternatives to formal employment, employment in the formal sector, if we are going to put our country as well as the world back on the path of economic development. And entrepreneurship is the key element in doing that.
Thank you so much, Nikhil. Really excited to hear a little bit more about, your perspectives on the entrepreneurship economy. I'd love to throw it to Nicole. Do you mind introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about your background in Globalization Partners and what it is about the startup community that's so exciting for you?
Sure. So my name is Nicole Sahin. I'm the CEO and founder of Globalization Partners. As you saw from the video, we help companies expand into other countries without them having to navigate the legal, HR, and finance issues associated with setting up a business, taking a business global. And we have about 300 people internally around the world and companies in about 60 countries. And we've been growing like crazy for the last 6 years or so. And the company's been going for about 10 years. So what do I love about entrepreneurship? I think that basically I see entrepreneurship as the key to solving the world's problems and creating solutions to the problems that we want to solve, and like making the world that we all want to live in. And I think anybody who sees the world right now and says, everything's perfect, I'm just ready to go home. Those people aren't the people who become entrepreneurs, and we all see things that we want to create. And I think that business is the easiest means to an end. So for people who do anything, whether they want to run a nonprofit or create a new technology or whatever, I mean, this is really the easiest means of changing the world. So I love seeing entrepreneurs. This is an incredible group of entrepreneurs, and we're really excited and thrilled to be a part of it. So thanks for the opportunity and all the work that you put into getting to this point.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I think we're all looking forward to seeing a group of individuals tonight that are really trying to change the world, and I think that's what's so exciting about these opportunities. So thank you again, Nick. Would love to hear a bit more about your background and what pulls you to the startup ecosystem. I think you're on mute, Nick.
Sorry about that. Yep. So thank you guys for having me. Really excited to be here. I'm the COO of HMC Capital US. HMC Capital is a global alternative asset manager with about 15 billion under management, investing in private equity, credit, real estate, and venture and growth. And I'm focused on venture and growth opportunities in the US. I actually came to HMC Capital from GSV Asset Management, where I was focused on kind of venture and growth investing. And we had a partnership with HMC. So there's a lot of continuity there. And there's a ton of reasons why I'm excited about entrepreneurship, but I'll echo something that Nicole said. I think we are, facing very obviously a number of kind of exponential challenges in the world today that don't have kind of incremental solutions. And so entrepreneurship is really going to be a path to kind of transformative change. And, looking at kind of where we sit today, where the 5 largest companies in the world are all technology companies. 20 years ago, the 5 largest companies were all founded in the kind of late 1800s. We're really sort of at an inflection point where you're just going to see more throughput of companies going from idea to being kind of transformational in a much shorter kind of window of time. And so it's really exciting to watch and to kind of interact with all the entrepreneurs here that are actually doing kind of the impossible. So I'm going to be more excited to be here.
Thanks a lot, Nick. And before we get into the pitches, I'd love to take a couple minutes and delve deeper into a couple of these topics that you've touched on here. Maybe Nicole, there's been a lot of discussion just in the last 3 minutes of these big, hairy, audacious problems that people are going after, and one of the outcomes of going after those big problems is companies seem to be getting big and global fast. It's no longer take 15, 20 years and then maybe you're making your first global hire. It's, instantly they're thinking about what it means to be a global company. I'm curious, what are some of the trends you see around early stage and growth stage companies going global? And, how are they addressing both kind of the challenges and opportunities of that rapid growth?
Yeah. So, I think that, first of all, it's exactly what you said, which is companies are going global more quickly now. And honestly, with COVID, I just think that was taking the trend of globalization and globalization of the workforce, and it's just given it a huge booster shot. So really, it's happening more now than ever before because basically people want to hire the talent anywhere they find it. And that was already true, but now it's even more true. And companies are going global more quickly because if you look at the U.S. market, you only have 25% of the global market in the U.S. and that's on a good day. So companies they want to hire salespeople in the UK and Singapore and Australia and Germany and go after global market share as quickly as possible. And I think with new business models like the global employer of record model that Globalization Partners offers, it's easier than ever to go global. It's not as complicated as it used to be. So companies can just kind of give it a shot and start going after those markets quickly and easily. Also, investors want everybody to go global fast because I think the investors feel like, if you're not going global, then you're leaving so much on the table at the outset. Although Nikhil probably has more commentary on that.
No, and Nikhil, anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I think we're seeing the importance of global markets becoming available to early stage companies much sooner than they used to be. And I think many of the technology companies that we see here at the Entrepreneurship World Cup and then around on the Passport platform are companies that have used technology to be able to access markets and opportunities and resources that typically a company would have taken 5 to 10 years to be able to reach. So I think the globalization of the supply chain and the globalization of markets that have been enabled through technology have really resulted in early stage companies making decisions of going international sooner and sooner.
It certainly makes sense. We can look at the last 5 to 10 years of breakthrough technology companies and, almost bar none, they had a global element and kind of global footprint to them, pretty rapidly. It's one of the benefits of mountains of venture capital available to fuel that rapid growth. And I'm curious, Nick, I think right when COVID hit, there were the classic doom and gloom predictions that early stage venture capital was going to completely dry up and funding was going to be impossible. Now that we're 4 to 6 months, past kind of the initial shock of COVID, what's your, pulse on the early stage and growth fundraising landscape? And how easy is it for companies to access capital to fuel that type of global growth?
So it's a little hard to read kind of exactly where we are because there's all these kind of competing signals. Like on the one hand, you have just the kind of madness of what's happening in the world. It's not like one black swan event. It's like a flock of black swan events that no one would have thought was humanly possible. And on the other hand, you have sort of markets that continue to perform very well, which is kind of counterintuitive. And I think you've got kind of data on angel and seed stage investing, which is also sort of mixed signals. I think, depending on how you slice it, angel investing is sort of held up. Seed investing seems like it's off pace and it's, you don't know exactly what that means. But I think if you just zoom out a little bit, there's kind of two key takeaways. One is that, if you look over the past 30 years, great companies are founded in all cycles, including and maybe especially in down kind of crazy environments. Airbnb was founded, right around when Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns tipped, Dropbox, all these companies. And so clearly, the record would suggest that you need to continue investing through all these cycles. And I think I don't think that's lost on people that kind of invest in this area. But second, I would say kind of just given, again, to go back to the sort of craziness of everything that's happening, ideas don't sound as crazy now when you're talking about kind of changing the old way of doing things because it's sort of been forced on people. So this is like this unique moment for entrepreneurship in the sense that everything is sort of being reimagined, and there's a lot of people that are just sort of caught flat-footed or kind of deer in the headlights. And so this is a moment for entrepreneurs to shine. So I think you'll see for on the early end of the spectrum where perhaps angel investors that were operating outside of a committed pool of capital may face some constraints or kind of they might be more conservative. But on the other hand, I think there's a recognition that there's going to be a lot of transformational ideas to address all these kind of new issues and opportunities that have popped up. And so it may be sort of a once in a lifetime kind of investment environment in that sense.
Oh, it's a great perspective and certainly makes sense. I mean, there's a classic line of, nothing's an agent for change like crisis. And, I imagine, Nikhil, folks like yourself who have been on the online learning and, e-learning kind of movement for 10 years now, have seen that transformation and change in attitudes kind of almost overnight. So I'm curious, Nikhil, how should founders think about using this COVID disruption as an accelerant? And how do they keep growing their business when, as you look out the door, every day, it feels like just chaos and disruption? What advice would you have for founders?
Well, I think both Nick and Nicole have made the point that the current crisis is actually an opportunity for entrepreneurs. I think the critical aspect for entrepreneurs to keep in mind right now is how do we access the resources that are required to build successful companies. On our experience with Passport and global entrepreneurship has been that global entrepreneurial talent and aspirations are uniformly distributed around the world, but the resources and opportunities to succeed are not. And so the question is, how do entrepreneurs in parts of the world that don't have access to these resources take the opportunity to get access to them? And what the global pandemic has done is to put a whole slew of resources online and globally available that were previously geographically centered and focused. And because of that, entrepreneurs now have more opportunities to access these resources than they have had in the past. Successful entrepreneurs need access to capital and customers. They need access to mentors and experts and advisors. They need access to a global entrepreneurial community with which they can network. They need access to service providers, technology providers, tools providers. So if you look at that full gamut of resources that they need, I would encourage entrepreneurs around the world to start going online, where a lot of these resources are now available. And whether you're in New York or London or Silicon Valley, or whether you're in Lima, Peru, or in Addis Ababa, you can access these resources from wherever you are. And I think we're in the business at GSV Labs of trying to level the playing field for entrepreneurs around the world, but there are other organizations that are doing the same thing. So for entrepreneurs, particularly tech entrepreneurs, this is perhaps the most opportune time to be able to access the resources they need to make their startup successful.
No, it is an incredible moment. There's been a real democratizing effect where, the classic mantra of if you wanted to meet a VC, you had to schedule a coffee meeting in San Francisco or Palo Alto. Now whether you're sitting in, Santiago or on Sand Hill Road, you've got the same access to a Zoom meeting with a venture investor or potential customer. So it is a very unique opportunity. Nicole, maybe a quick question, given your background in the talent space. I think one of the most obvious changes for most of the people in the tech industry of COVID has been this overnight transition to work from home. And kind of with that transition to distributed teams, distributed talent. And I think over the past couple months, we've seen companies start to, break a lot of the myths they might have had around what was possible and what would it mean to have a distributed workforce. Do you see that continuing, or do you think there's going to be a correction on the other side? Like, what does, forgetting COVID, which you can't do, but sans COVID, what does 2021 and 2022 look like for distributed teams?
Totally. I mean, I think people are going to stay distributed. And I don't think anybody would, I mean, I think there's some people who like to be in an office space a little bit more than others. So like my sales team wants to be in the office. They're just hyper social people. And I think young people who don't have a network, they are going to want to build a network. But like people who already have a network and older people and executives, they're happy working from home, and people who already have an established community seem fine. Like they have entrenched relationships. But even without that, we've hired like 70 people since March. Haven't never met any of these people in person. The company's running fine. And it sounds crazy, but the more I talk to more people, they all say the same thing. Like the company's going great. And most people seem to kind of surprised that things are going this well. So given the cost of office space, that people like working wherever they work, I just think we're going to see some major economic repercussions that we haven't even begun to contemplate yet. I am an internationalist, and I do believe in hiring the best talent anywhere you can find it. And yet I almost find it a little bit scary to think about how quickly it's going to change a little bit of our economy, like people not wanting to live and work in cities as much, what could happen with commercial real estate, and the rapid globalization of the workforce from a societal perspective. Those are some things that I think are going to shock the system a bit.
Certainly, and it's impossible to imagine this type of transition happening without the catalyst of something like COVID that, you know, requires everyone to come up with a new playbook almost overnight. And I think that's something that entrepreneurs are doing across the spectrum with talent, with customer acquisition, with access to capital. And so maybe I'd ask all of our panelists and judges to wrap this up with one final comment, which is, you know, if you had one piece of advice that you were going to give to an early stage founder that was starting a company right now, you know, what would that be? And maybe Nicole, we'll keep it going with you.
Yeah. Thanks. I love to give this advice. My advice is to go for it. So, you know, I was always nervous. I wasn't nervous. I was scared before I quit my job and went wholeheartedly into running my own business. And somebody gave me the advice once that the first year, it's like you're worried about it. You don't know if it's going to work. You're like terrified and exhilarated. Year 2 is the happiest year of your life because you're confident it's going to work. But and you're like not working so much and you're doing really well. And year 3 and thereafter, you're drinking through a fire hose, but delighted and happy. And then it's that way ever after, and you'd never work for anyone else again. And I found that to be true. And I wish everybody the utmost success and good luck in their endeavors and ventures.
I think some folks are probably listening to you right now. We've got the right audience for that type of message. Nick, any advice you'd give to the founders watching?
Yeah, I mean, and this sort of speaks to what Nikhil was saying about the sort of value of the kind of resources in the GSV Labs platform, but aggressively embed yourself in that kind of ecosystem where there are resources, people, kind of, you know, talent that can help you do what you're trying to do. And you know, this kind of environment, this kind of event is kind of, you know, exhibit A of how to do that. You can't network in Silicon Valley, and that was only a small group of people that were able to do that anyways. And so aggressively break into the kind of new innovation ecosystems that can give you advantages. And this is a prime example.
Thanks, Nick. Final word to you, Nikhil.
Yeah, Nicole said go for it. I'm going to say go global. And go global is both in terms of where you access your resources and supply chain from, but also where you find your markets and your customers. What the pandemic has done, again, is accelerated the trend towards the creation of global opportunities. And I think we're going to see more and more of that happen in companies that can take advantage of globalization, both on the supply chain as well as on the customer side, are the ones that are going to succeed.
Thank you very much, Nikhil. And thanks again to all three of you for, you know, the first kind of glimpse at some of the perspective and insights we're going to get for you tonight, but really looking forward to hearing your thoughts and questions for the entrepreneurs that are coming up. And with that, we are ready to get into the pitches. it's an exciting time for these founders that are getting ready to get started, get going, and there's 10 incredible pitches that are just seconds away. Want to give a reminder to all of our audience, use the chat in the platform, ask questions. We're going to have a Q&A for each one of our companies. They're going to get 5 minutes to pitch, 5 minutes of Q&A, and we're going to do our best to get your startups or your questions in front of these startups that you're throwing into the chat. At the same time, want to remind you to rate the startups on the Entrepreneurship World Cup platform. You can see right beneath the screen all of our presenting startups as they present. Let us know what you think, and you're going to help choose the winner in the event of a tie. So in the event that any of our judges tie on our scoring, the audience vote is going to determine who gets the cash and who gets to advance to the global finals. So let's move on to the startup portion of the night. And we are ready to get started with our first 3 pitches of the night. You'll be hearing from Ellis Day Skin Science, Sonics Medical Devices, and Quoherent. And with that, it's my pleasure to welcome Carol, the CEO of Ellis Day Skin Science, to the virtual stage.
My video is running, not running. Hello.
We can see you loud and clear. You're coming through.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Carol, the CEO of Ellis Day Skin Science. And our big, hairy, audacious goal is to revolutionize skincare. And that's to enable everyone to have healthier skin. So the global skincare market is enormous, and there are an endless array of products to solve every possible skin issue that you could have. But what's become apparent increasingly is that with all these solutions, people are actually having more problems with their skin. And specifically, what we're here to address is skin issues that are increasing in prevalence, like adult acne, sensitive skin, hormonal breakouts, and now maskne, since we're all wearing masks. And the key to understanding these problems and finding the right solution is the skin microbiome. So all these problems are really indications of there being an imbalance in the skin microbiome, meaning too much bad bacteria and not enough good bacteria. And that could be caused by the environment, by cosmetics, internal things like stress and hormones and diet. So what's the way to resolve this imbalance in the skin microbiome? Well, the answer is actually on our skin already. They're called phages. These are living microbes and they're very targeted. So every phage is made to eradicate a very specific type of bacteria. They're on your skin, they're in your gut, and they're actually all throughout nature. They're in clouds, in the ocean, and in dirt. And they've actually been used in medicine to treat very serious bacterial infections like dysentery and cholera, and even treat infections where antibiotics haven't worked. And in the last couple of decades, DNA sequencing technology has enabled medicine, and now Ellis Day, to find the specific bacteria that are causing the problem and then to match it with the phage that will eradicate just that bacteria without affecting anything else in your microbiome. What LSD has really added to the party instead of just DNA sequencing is that we also have intellectual property in how we combine phages to protect against bacterial resistance, how we formulate phage products so that they're shelf stable at room temperature. Nobody else has been able to do that. And then how we produce them at mass quantities for the consumer market so we can have a low cost of goods and an acceptable margin. We're also unique in that we have done a controlled clinical study. And these are just a couple of the before and after pictures that show you when people had some of those skin issues I had talked about and they use our product daily, they get resolution of those things like inflammation and redness and even very severe acne. The other thing we did in our clinical study was we did DNA sequencing of skin swabs from our participants. And that's so that we could characterize the bacteria on people's faces and follow that over the 12 weeks they used the phage. And you can see in these graphs on the left, the harmful bacteria decrease, and in the middle and on the right, the neutral and the good bacteria increase. And that's what balancing the microbiome is all about, getting rid of the bad and increasing the good bacteria. We are right now an all women-led company, and the expertise we have ranges from digital marketing and branding, dermatology, the skin microbiome, and phage production. And we have just launched our first product called Wild Resilience Active Phage Serum. And we sell this on our own website, and the retail price is $85. And this is a very clean formulation. We are now entering the $6 billion US prestige skincare category. And within that, we are specifically targeting millennials, mostly women, because these are the women that are looking for clean and natural products. They're very sophisticated in terms of ingredients, and they're looking for scientific data and innovation in their skincare products. We are off to a great start after just 4 months of launch. These two graphs on the left are our sales by month, and they show you that not only are sales increasing, but the rate of increase is increasing. And then on the right, we have our customer acquisition costs, which are going down every month as we optimize our digital marketing. We also have a great repurchase rate after 4 months, 18%. And so we're almost at the 20% norm for a going brand in the beauty category. What's also exciting is when people repurchase, they order 2.5 times what they did originally. So great feedback and great indication of scalability of this business. We've also gotten great media coverage, which really confirmed the validity of our balancing the skin microbiome story. We're also going to move on to other products that are phage-based for both skincare and personal care. And we are currently raising a $2.5 million price round. So I invite all interested investors as well as consumers to check us out at our website, lsdskinscience.com. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Carol, and congratulations on the really exciting progress since launch in May. Looks like you're taking off, and that's always great to see. I'd love to throw it over to our judges for any questions. Maybe Nikhil, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thanks, Alec, and thank you, Carol, for the presentation and exciting work. As someone who suffers from skin problems myself, I'm always interested in these kinds of solutions. In the beginning, you talked about the advances in DNA sequencing enabling us to understand more about how individuals differ from others in terms of the problems and solutions. So where I thought you were going with that was more towards a personalized solution based on the characteristics of an individual's skin, phages, or DNA, or whatever personal elements. And so I was surprised when the product you showed at the end was a generic solution that seemed to take none of that into account because it's available to everyone. So how do you help me reconcile this sort of the personalization element? And I believe, and I know just enough to be dangerous about this, that biomes are also very individualized and personal, and they differ from person to person. If that is the case, then how do we get generic sort of products to be able to solve what are very personal problems?
Yes, we did consider the personalization strategy. But what we learned was everyone has about 95% of their skin microbiome occupied by about 3 basic bacteria: Corynebacterium, Cutibacterium acnes, and Staph aureus. And so personalizing is really only addressing a very, very small part of the skin microbiome. And what we learned was that most of the problems that people have, like inflammation, redness, uneven skin tone and texture, and even acne, one of the primary bacterial causes of that is Cutibacterium acnes. And so that's why we started with that. What we learned in beta tests we did for a year is we had people from age 15 to about 65 using the product. So this was not just people with acne using the product. And everyone saw an improvement in whatever their skin issue was because it had this bacterial component. So that's why the mass as opposed to the personalization approach.
Thank you. One quick follow-up. Does the product require any regulatory approvals, or is it just sort of considered cosmetic rather than a medical solution?
Right. From a regulatory standpoint, it is considered a cosmetic. If we were promoting claims to treat a disease like acne, then it's considered a drug and you would have to go through regulatory approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikhil. Any questions from you, Nicole?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love your product idea. I think this is wonderful. And I can just imagine how beneficial it is for people, and also while being very natural. And of note, I think it's really cool because I think the more women who get into business, they see opportunities that maybe other entrepreneurs or more traditionally focused entrepreneurs might not have seen. So I guess my question is like, what does it take to get you to a point where your market's stable? Like, what type of funding do you see? You know, like, what are you looking for now, and what's it take to get you to the next level? And what are the metrics that you see when you'll know you've hit that level?
Right. Well, with our next fundraise of $2.5 million, we can actually break even the second year. Break even in and of itself is not our goal. But what we're trying to do is a better job than a lot of the skincare companies that have launched in the last 5 years, who have poured $100 million in venture capital in, and they're still not profitable. So what we're focused on is, can we demonstrate scalability and virality of this business within the first year? And we're already, even at this stage, seeing not just good results, but we're seeing the effect of changing your advertising from $5,000 a month to $18,000 a month, and the difference that has in our sales. So we're certainly understanding the dynamics and the levers to pull to very efficiently get to where we want to go.
And when you've captured the market, what does that look like to you?
Capturing the market for us, we would love to have 2% of the prestige skincare market. I think in terms of having an exit, we're looking at, can we get to $2 to $5 million as far as annualized revenue, get to that rate? And then we have a lot more options in terms of partnering or exits or private equity.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Nick, anything to wrap it up?
Yeah, just when you think about the kind of catalysts that will make you break through into kind of broader consciousness, clearly there's a lot of brands out there. There are celebrity-driven brands. You know, like Rihanna's got a skincare product brand now that's popular. So there's a lot of brand activity. Do you think it's the science behind the product that's going to kind of break through, or is there a kind of brand concept that you think is differentiated? I'm just curious how you think about that breakthrough driver.
Well, certainly there are two very important, equally important pieces. One is the branding, and I think for a consumer product, that's always going to be important. The other is, particularly right now with the pandemic, is the science and having the scientific data and the evidence to support the claims we've made. And we've held both of those up as equally important. In terms of our branding, our marketing person developed some really knockout branding, and it's focused in self-care and wellness, as opposed to here's the latest and greatest nifty beauty product. And we have found that really resonates with consumers. We've also taken a marketing approach in terms of education. We want people to understand what phages are. We want people to understand our clinical data. We want them to understand their own skin microbiome and why it's important to keep that healthy. And so a lot of our spending and a lot of our messaging is about education. So we know that's important on the marketing side, but we also know the branding's important. There's certainly lots of examples in the beauty category of scientifically great products that had poor branding, and of course, true as well. And so we think both are very important.
Is there a channel that you think is going to be the most promising based on your early observations, or is it not clear yet?
You mean a distribution channel?
No, on the marketing front.
Well, you mean as far as direct to consumer versus going brick and mortar?
Yeah, or I'm just curious, all of the above.
We chose direct to consumer first because we only had one SKU, and we said we will go into brick and mortar once we have a family of products. I think now with the pandemic, everyone is taking a step back and saying, let's wait and see what happens with brick and mortar. Right now, what's great about DTC is that we have such access to the data and we can engage with our customers. So it's helping us learn about and grow our business where we can make changes on a day-to-day basis even. And so for now, I think that's a great approach for us.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. Really appreciate you sharing more about LSD Skin Science, and excited to see that sales chart can continue to go up and to the right, as you add more products to the line. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you.
With that, it's my pleasure to welcome our second presenter, Vipula from Sonix Medical Devices, to the virtual stage.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you and we're seeing your screen.
Okay, and can you see me or not? I thought my video was on, but.
I just prompted you to turn your video on.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Vipula Taylor, founder and CEO of Sonix Medical Devices. At Sonix, we are addressing two things: combating bacterial infections that develop during the medical procedures or surgeries, and also preventing the development of antimicrobial resistance, AMR, or superbugs. The focus we have targeted is on three areas: surgical site infections, hospital-acquired infections, and catheter site infections. Today, almost 700,000 people die every year because of the bacterial resistance that you see due to antibiotics usage. And also for patients who are on any kind of catheters, they actually develop about 40 to 80% of the patients develop infections, and their mortality rate is pretty high, up to about 50%.
Vipula, please let us know when you'd like us to advance the slides.
Okay, am I not able to advance my own slides? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, could you please go to the second slide? Okay, great. I'm going to just open this one. So basically, what we are trying to do is avoiding a next pandemic. And this is something that WHO has been warning and United Nations has been warning for a long time. And why we are able to do this is a lot of companies are actually going about building another new antibiotics. However, we have taken a different approach. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay. So this slide gives you a summary of what the current available solutions are. Most of the solutions available are either chemical-based or are antibiotics. There is nothing in between. And if you actually look at the biological evolution of bacteria, these bacteria are killed by UV lights. And so we were actually thinking about how do we use some of the other energies to be able to bring something that can be used not just pre-surgery, but post-surgery, and also for the catheter site infections. And of course, you cannot use UV lights. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so I can't see what slides are being moved around, so I'm sorry. Okay, so Sonics 8A is a technology where we are actually bringing not a UV light, because if you have a UV light, you're actually going to cause cancer in patients and humans. We are combining a non-UV light source along with a high frequency sound waves. This actually results in photomodulation, which actually triggers the bacteria to die from within itself with a process called apoptosis. And our device has actually proven to show that, and I'll show you some of the data later on. It is 100% antibiotic free, and it is a class 2 medical device according to FDA. The way it works is it basically feels like a massager or a face trimmer or electrical shaver. And it actually allows the gel to penetrate through the ultrasound into the skin. And then we are able to use that treatment. And every 20 to 30 minutes treatment lasts about 48 hours, which is a very fantastic outcome for these kind of devices, because now you can actually have patients who are coming for surgery treated 24 hours before to keep the bioburden low in that areas. What it does is it really kills all the bacteria, gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria, including MRSA and superbugs. It also destroys the biofilm 100%. So this is very important because most of the drugs or the antibiotics do not work because they cannot penetrate through the biofilms that bacteria has created. The other important feature of our device is it actually is on the surface of the skin and underneath the surface of the skin. It takes, so can you just imagine when you actually have in the operating room, a scalpel is being used to open your skin, you're actually dragging some of your bacteria into your bloodstreams and tissues, and that's how you actually end up getting sepsis. So we are able to actually sterilize the skin also beneath the surface of the skin. And this is something that really has been a very exciting development, especially for the surgeons that we have spoken to so far. I just want to show you, if you can see my video, this is a device that we have actually built. And can you see my video, Joe?
Yes.
So this is the device. We have used this already in the clinical trials. So this is how it has a laptop type of screen, which actually takes in any kind of input for the different kinds of surgeries. So it's a very explanatory in terms of using this device as far as it goes. We also have a handheld device that we are actually using for patients with catheters. And this is very, very good because of the catheter site infections, especially for patients who are on dialysis. Next slide, please. So this is the data. These are the clinical data. So if you look at the Petri dishes or the circular plates, on the left-hand side is a control plate with all the bacterial colonies that were actually swabbed from the patient's side. And then in the middle is treated with the light, and on the right-hand side is the Sonics treated plate. So you see absolutely no colonies. And the bars on the top are actually comparative to a light device versus a Sonics device, which is in orange. And you can see about 10 log reduction in the bacteria. At the bottom, the bar shows the Sonics device treated patients versus 2 weeks of antibiotics being given to the patients. And this is 3 days of treatment with Sonics device. Next slide, please. So from competitive position, when we compare the chemical-based solutions and also from the light-based solutions, we are very competitive. Next slide, please. And our customers are pretty much every patient and every hospital and every surgery that happens in the world. Next slide, please. So potential market is about 189 billion. However, we are actually going to focus on the hemodialysis market. It is a low-hanging fruit for us. So we're actually going to address the 100 billion market, where the accessible market for us will be about 10 billion. Next slide, please. The model is very straightforward. Reimbursement model is already existing, and we are actually able to develop these devices and actually send it out into countries like India. And that was one of our focus, where we wanted to make sure that the devices were accessible even in low economic conditions of the countries. Can you go to the next slide, please? These are some of our strategic partners that we are actually working with. We have a couple of due diligence going on at the moment. And these are, because it's a technology platform, we can actually apply this to different orthopedic surgeries, cardiovascular surgery, OBGYN, and wound healing. And some of the current existing medical processes they have are actually contraindicated. So this becomes a first choice for a lot of surgeons. Next slide, please.
You can wrap up in the next 30 seconds.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So we are looking to raise about 3 million. We have been actually granted a National Science Foundation grant just this year. And we're actually excited about that. And we have done all of this work through using off-the-shelf materials, and the cost of our production has been basically assembly cost. And in terms of getting revenue, we are looking at the first year to be revenue positive. Can you go to the next slide, please? So our gross margin is about 80%, and we're looking at selling 2,500 units, which are already being processed in our POs. So we are very excited to deliver these small handheld units to the surgeries. Next slide, please. Acquisition, we have multiple exit strategy. Licensing deals are right now in consideration. We're actually talking to a couple of companies to do this, and then eventually we'll be looking for acquisition as well. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Vipula.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we need to move into the
All right,
judgment.
okay, no worries,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you very much for introducing the Sonics device, and excited to hear what our judges have to say about this transformation in infection prevention. Nicole, do you want to kick us off with any initial questions?
Sure. Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I guess my questions are really around the team and kind of your go-to-market strategy. Like, who is on the team with you, and what's your, how are you going to market at this point,
Sure.
even before approvals?
Sure. Alex, can you just put my couple of slides of the team, please, if you don't mind? So my team really is, we have a world-leading authority in ultrasound. He's a mechanical engineer, and he's actually helping us bring the ultrasound capabilities. I'm a medical immunologist and a microbiologist by training. So I have pretty much worked in companies like Johnson & Johnson, Kimberly-Clark, Merck, and Pfizer for many years. This is my third startup. I have exited my 2 other startups earlier on. So I bring the science and the microbiology aspects of it. Mark brings the technology aspects of it. Denis Grimard, who is also 35 years in Kimberly-Clark, he's helping with a lot of elements that we need because we have a lot of electronics in this device. So he's helping with that, and also operationalizing the stuff. And Dr. Aditi Dalvi, she's an MD, MBA from Babson. And I have an excellent advisory board. Dr. Cammy Graham, she is infectious disease expert at Harvard. Dr. Ali is oncologist, and Priya, she's an international regulatory affair. She has her own consulting company, so she's helping with that. And Dr. Daniel Schindler, he is actually the pioneer who has started listening to the heart based on the echocardiography. So a lot of ultrasound goes in there. So a lot of these expertise are coming together to help us build how far we can go into the deep tissues to actually eliminate any kind of infections going forward and building these devices.
Thank you, Nicole. Any questions from you, Nick?
I guess just zooming out a little, what's the one reason why you're going to break through and be a large public company? And then on the flip side, what is like the critical or the existential challenge that's, that you got to break through to get there?
Sure. So why we would be better than everything else? So right now,
why are you going to? What is the reason? The kind of key reason, based on the talent you've assembled, the technology, that you're going to actually kind of break through? What is your secret? Why are you going to win?
Because we are actually addressing 2 things, which is the most concerning aspects of medical field today. One is generating the antibacterial resistance. We're actually going to break that cycle altogether because if you develop any kind of new antibiotics, any antibiotics that gets developed within a year or so, you're going to see a resistant bug develop to it. Bugs are much more.
It's a product. You think your product is, you got the product's going to win.
Yes, in that aspect, yes. And also in terms of the amount of time you actually laying off the bacteria to 0 count is very important. Most of the surgical post-surgery infections that happens within 24 to 48 hours. And if you look at the orthopedic surgeries, they have to remove all the implants if they have infection. And having 1 full day of antibiotic treatment actually kills all of your gut biome for 6 months. So we are actually addressing the two very major concerns that have been shared globally, even with Bill Gates and Melinda Foundation. We were actually working in India with them, and they have actually expressed a lot of interest in bringing this forward to those countries where you cannot store antibiotics for a longer time. There's no expiration for our device as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any final questions, Nikhil?
Yeah, quick question. Since you're following up on Nick's question about, what will make you win, and it sounds like the product and the technology is where the focus of that is. So, what is the protection here? What kinds of protection of intellectual property do you have? What's the defensive moat? And how easy it is for anyone else to reverse engineer the product and come up with a competing product based on the same, the same underlying concept.
Yeah. So as we all know, the light technology has existed for many years, and so is ultrasound. And what we bring in and the winning solution here is also our team. Mark and myself have been able to actually concretely develop a device that actually has a patient outcomes. If somebody was able to do this, they would have been able to do this, many years ago, because ultrasound has been known for many years, and so is the light technology. The other part of this is we actually have covered with 8 solid patents in 4 different families, which actually includes the way we are assembling some of the components in the unit, the outcome base, and also destroying the biofilm 100%. And that is something that we actually covered. And we have a couple of trade secrets that we are not going to put into IP, but we have been issued global 8 patents to date, and we actually have filing another 4 more this year.
Great, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vipula, for sharing some more about Sonic's medical devices. We really appreciate you spending time with us
Thanks
tonight.
for the opportunity.
Wonderful. And with that, we are ready to transition to our third presentation for the night. It's my pleasure to welcome Roberto from Coherent. Roberto, you're currently muted.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Do you mind turning your video on?
Oh, I thought I did. Start my video. Here we go. Can you see me?
You're all set.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Can you see my my slide?
Yes, you're coming through.
Okay, wonderful. So good evening, and my name is Roberto De Salvo, and I am the CEO and founder of Coherent. Let me talk to you about the future of quantum computing. Okay. Can you see my second slide now?
Yes.
Okay, so quantum processors are the next revolution in computing. Our vision is to develop and commercialize the world's first room temperature portable quantum computer processor. The challenge is that most quantum computer processor designs require high vacuum and temperatures near absolute zero to operate. These pose severe limitations on size and infrastructure. You can clearly see on the left how a quantum computer occupies the better part of a large room. Before we go forward, let's look at the basics. As is well known, digital computers operate by manipulating zeros and ones. Quantum computers use quantum bits, or qubits. These qubits exploit 2 key principles of quantum mechanics, superposition and entanglement, and that is the source of their great computational power. You can see in the lower picture how 3 bits can encode 1 of 8 possible strings, while 3 qubits can encode all 8 strings at once. That's the magic of superposition. The problem is, qubits are very sensitive to the environment and are easily disturbed by thermal and electromagnetic noise. That is why they require a high vacuum cryogenic environment. So back in 2018, we asked ourselves the question, what exotic materials out there can enable us to make a qubit but won't require the extreme vacuum and low temperatures to work? It turns out that they do indeed exist, and they're called topological insulators. These materials were only discovered in 2007. This technology relies on a sophisticated crystal growth process that self-assembles topologically complex nanoplatelets that yield charge parity or mirror symmetry protected states. You can see a platelet connected with electrodes, and the data show how it is possible to access the quantum states. The advantage of our technology lies in the fact that the qubits don't require cryogenic cooling, electromagnetic shields, high vacuum, and the technology is similar to current silicon chip technology in size, fabrication, and manufacturing techniques. The small and light form factor enables their use in mobile applications and in environments lacking network connectivity, a big plus for military applications. Our business model is to develop the technology with government funds and raise capital from investors for marketing and accelerating growth. We're working with universities, companies, and government labs to mature the technology and test the market. Our licensing agreements are in place, and we are actively pursuing patent protection. Based on documented reports, the quantum computer market is going to be 5.8 billion by 2025, with a compound annual growth rate of 32%. We estimate that by capturing 10% of the total addressable market, our revenues will be $60 million by 2025. Worldwide, hundreds of companies are working on quantum computing and communications. The list of major companies working on quantum processors in North America includes IBM, Google, Intel, Rigetti, and D-Wave. They are all committed to superconducting cryogenic technology. They have hundreds of PhDs who studied and are experts in that technology and cannot easily migrate to a completely different approach based on topological insulator technology. This, we believe, acts as our moat. To our knowledge, we are currently the only team working on this technology. To date, we've received $1.2 million of funding from NASA and the Air Force, and have $1.5 million of funding currently under evaluation by the Air Force, the Navy, the Army. We see this as a definite show of traction in the market. The roadmap has taken us from proof of concept to now, where we are working on building the quantum logic gates, and by the end of 2021 have an addressable register. Our team is uniquely qualified for bringing this product to market. We have a deep understanding of the technology, the ability to raise money for such a complicated system, and experience in the user market for high-performance computing. Our crew is staffed with some exceptionally talented researchers with a deep knowledge of the science and a strong commitment to the technology. Our most experienced members cut their teeth in the successful technology transfer of advanced photovoltaic cells, and our youngest members have an incredible energy and resolve to work through the challenges and succeed in the development of our innovative topological insulator quantum processor. We are currently looking for 5 to 7 million in private investment for marketing, customer discovery, and setting up pilot testing programs with universities and research laboratories to develop our market base. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roberto. Really appreciate it. And you know, I'm not going to pretend for one moment to understand the nuances of what you're doing. I'm hoping Nikhil knows more, but this is an area where I do not know enough to be dangerous. But you know, incredibly exciting to see the work you're doing, especially around quantum at room temperature and more stable environments. So I'd love to throw it over to our judges for any questions. Nick, do you maybe want to kick us off?
Yeah, this is going to sound crazy, but setting aside the technology, which is like the essential element of what you're doing for a second, what is the business model that you envision once you got the technology nailed?
Well, lately we've been looking at that, and I think the best models are, for example, the foundry models, where you have the intellectual property and then you license the technology to companies that want to use those chips. So yeah, that's sort of the general direction.
Like the Rigetti sort of model.
Right. So a lot of chip foundries nowadays, and even Intel nowadays has even mentioned and kind of hinted that maybe they're not going to be producing all their chips in-house, and they're going to start having other and it's a little tricky because ours is slightly different technology. So really we have to develop the entire environment and then be able to see how it maps onto current technology as it's done in the business.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah,
Nikhil or Nicole, any questions?
Sure. Yeah, I have a question, which is again it's back to your team, but like what is the commercialization strength of your team? Like, do you have people on your team who have taken a business to market, like once it has this type of technology? Because it seems, first of all, the technology seems amazing. And then there's the question of like, how do you break into these really big companies that would seem to be the market? And I'm curious
Well, sure. Yes, actually, we have team members, and I this is my third business, so I have previously brought up two businesses before, and we have team members who are actually have experience in raising money in capital markets. My business partner has experience, and he's taken businesses to private markets, and also we're a relatively large group. And we have several experienced people there who have, in different stages of their career, participated in tech transfer and gone to bigger companies. And just because of the kind of work we do, because it's materials development and technology, we have current relationships with a lot of these companies, actually. So they're sort of, right now, they're just waiting and seeing, sort of letting us take this to market, and then if they see traction and they see that the technology works as advertised, and obviously we believe it does, but as they see more evidence of that, they'll come to us, actually, because we already have those relationships.
That's great.
Nikhil, any questions on your side?
I was a little surprised about what you said about use of funds, and I think you said that you're raising 1.5 million to support marketing and channel partnerships. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the central technology problem yet unresolved? You don't currently have a working chip at room temperature. And until that problem is solved, it seems premature to be focusing on marketing and channel partnerships.
Yeah, I might have misspoke. No, what we're doing right now is we're definitely, the active part is raising money mostly through the government for the actual development of the technology for various reasons. And what we're looking for money from investors is to go create the test and partnerships at the universities and other companies, because obviously when they want to participate in a study, the first thing they ask for is, well, where are we going to get the money? So obviously we have to be able to provide the money to set up these experiments and have them test the technology and become partners in the development of the technology. So that's the main principal use of the money.
What investment would partners need to make to create an infrastructure where your chip can be tested?
It's the 5 to 7 million that we're looking for right now. That's what we estimate to be the money necessary to get enough universities and enough companies, research labs at companies and government labs to set up experiments so that they can validate the work we're doing.
Got it. Thank you.
And maybe one final question for me, what's the biggest unknown or challenge that keeps you up at night and that you've got to figure out if you're going to really kind of carve out space in this area? I'm sure there's many on the technology side, but what's that kind of one thing that's driving you?
Yeah, it's true. The technology does keep us up at night a lot because obviously that has to work. But it's a product isn't just about the technical. It's about how it works and how it goes into an environment and how it becomes in synergy with other technologies. And that's the tricky part. Is this a technology? Although it has incredible promise, just because it doesn't require cryogenic cooling to work. Is it going to be a technology that finds people who adopt it and then run with it and grow it? The history is littered with technologies that were great, but they just somehow weren't at the right time or the right place and didn't really find traction. And that's the secret sauce, and that's what keeps me up at night.
Well, thank you very much, Roberto. Looking forward to seeing more, DoD grants and NASA programs that Coherent's participating in, and obviously super hopeful that you're able to develop this technology. It would be a game changer when it comes to computing capabilities. So thank you again, Roberto.
Thank you. Thank you.
With that, we've gone through our first three presenting companies, of the U.S. National Finals. Our next three companies that are up are going to be FarmSense, Rubitection, and Haptic. It's my pleasure to welcome Eamon, co-founder of FarmSense, to the virtual stage.
Good afternoon. I'm Eamon of FarmSense, the next generation of insect monitoring. Let me tell you the problem we're trying to solve. So for every food that humans eat, every fruit, nut, berry, grain, corn, there's at least one insect that attacks that food. For example, for almonds, it's this guy here, the navel orange worm. And it damages about $1,700 of crops per acre per year. But then into context, there's about 1.4 million acres of almonds just here in California. If you extrapolate this over all crops, all insects worldwide, you're looking at a $200 billion a year problem. So how do growers solve that problem today? Typically, they place sticky traps in the field. They come back after 10 or 14 days, retrieve the trap, mechanically count it, put it into Excel or some other spreadsheet, run a model, and based upon the outcome of that model, make a go, no-go decision to intervene. For example, here, a broadcast spray. What's the problem with this? First of all, it's inaccurate. A lot of bugs just look alike, even though they're different. It's incredibly costly. And the main cost here is the human labor to drive around, to walk around, to collect and count. But the real nasty problem is the long time lag. The time it arrives in your field to the time it actually is in your model might be up to 14 days. And by then, a small problem has gotten out of hand and is a big problem, and you're forced to do a draconian intervention like a broadcast spray. FarmSense has a solution. You place our sensors in the field, they track the insects. When they arrive, we actually sense them and found that we can actually figure out the sex and species of your insect. We can do that because we have very cool algorithms. And we have very cool algorithms in part because we have lots of data. In fact, we have more data in this space than the rest of the world combined. And just like Google or Facebook or Amazon, when you have lots of data, you can do very, very cool things. The user experience is very familiar. You go to your iPhone, you go to your laptop, and you can look at your field. You can slice the information by sex, species, time of arrival, location, and so forth. You get the rich information you need to make an intervention. Let me give you just one example of that information you can get. So some growers do what's called puffin or mate disruption. They spray a synthetic pheromone at night that confuses the males so they cannot find the females, and then no new generation is born. Now, most growers run these puffers from dusk to dawn, about 10 hours. With this chart here, we show that for one grower, we can actually measure when insects are active in our field, and it's an incredibly narrow time window from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. So by changing the timer on a puffer, we're able to save for 80% of our expensive chemical costs and get the exact same results. This information is golden, both in time and in space. So what are the benefits of FarmSense? The first and most important one is increased yield. We simply lose less crops to bad insects. We also greatly reduce pesticide use, and that has lots of great knock-on effects. First of all, pesticides are expensive themselves. The labor to apply pesticides are expensive, occasionally renting a helicopter or airplane. Pesticides kill healthy pollinators like bees. They incur the risk of resistance evolving in the insects, and they damage the environment. So about 6% of the CO2 footprint of humankind comes from the manufacture and transportation of pesticides. And finally, because information is so timely, you can often intervene with a natural biological control as opposed to a very nasty control. So the benefits are basically win-win-win for all players. Obviously, we're in a lucrative space and we have competition. We have several unique advantages that really makes us better than the competition. The most important one is classification. Our rivals typically know when insect has arrived. We know when it's arrived, and we can tell you its sex and its species, and that makes a difference. Look at the bug here in the bottom. Is it a harmful navel orange worm, or is it a noctis water lily moth? We can tell with our sensor, our rivals can't. So we are very ambitious. We want to be in every field, every crop, everywhere on the planet, but in the short term, we're going after the low-hanging fruit, literally metaphorically. So in the USA, there's about $8 million of high-value fruits and nuts, most of them actually in our back garden here in California. And we want to be protecting those in the next 1 or 2 years. Let's talk about business model. We are not a sensor or hardware company, even though we make an amazing sensor. We are a data information company. We do charge the grower a one-time fee to install the sensor, but after that, we make our real money with a subscription fee per acre that we actually monitor. So the sensor like Spotify and Netflix. We already have some customers listed here. One thing to notice actually about our customers is in every single case they came to us. We've yet to knock on a single door. They found us through blog posts and other things and basically said, we have a problem, can you help us? And the answer is, yes, we can. So we got here because we have really the best team in the world for this. Salandra, my co-founder, is simply a genius when it comes to sensors, embedded systems, Internet of Things, and so forth. He can tease these tiny signals. Once the signal is given to me, I'm an expert in machine learning and AI. I can tease after that signal what kind of it is, how old it is, its sex, and its species. Lynn's a money expert. Leslie wears actually 2 hats. She's an entomologist. She's done this for a living, but also in the last 2 decades, she's done multiple exits with ag tech and animal health companies. And finally, Cliff is very important. He has 50 years of experience working with growers on a day-to-day basis, monitoring insects. So he really understands their customers incredibly well. He understands their pain points. With that, I'd like to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Eamon. Really exciting to learn about FarmSense and taking, IoT to a part of the economy in the globe that just has not gotten enough attention, which is the agricultural space. I'd love to throw it to any of our judges for initial questions. Maybe Nikhil, do you want to kick us off? You're on mute, Nikhil.
All right. Eamon, thank you. That was great. Quick question on go-to-market strategy. So far, you've had customers coming to you to solve problems, but as you build a scale business, what approaches do you think you'll pursue in terms of being able to penetrate the market?
A good question. So if you pick any crop you want, cherries, almonds, pistachios, there's a cherry board and an almond board, and they meet once a year. And essentially everyone in the world who cares about cherries or almonds will physically be in that room, often in California, but sometimes elsewhere in the world. And so you have a chance to go there as either an academic presenter or as a booth and actually show people and demo to people your device. But something else you should know is that in California especially, a grower cannot apply pesticides without permission from a PCA, a licensed pest advisor. Our friend Cliff is one of those. And about 4,000 of these people in California. So really those are people actually who are real customers. They actually make the decision for the grower about what to do. And again, we have connections and networks to these people to sell our device to them.
Thank you.
Any questions from you, Nicole?
Yeah, I guess my biggest question is really about the regulatory issues as they vary state to state and region by region and how that interacts with your business, since I would imagine this is a fairly regulated industry.
So at our end, there are no regulations. We're simply providing information, a heat map on an iPhone, and what you do with that is actually your choice or your PCA's choice, basically. And so the PCAs are all PhDs, they're highly trained, and they actually sign off and have to record this with the federal government. So we don't have any regulations. We only give information to somebody else who takes care of that.
Yeah, it seems like a game changer. I mean, the data, like 80% of it is in between certain hours is pretty compelling.
It really is. And a lot of growers actually think they know their crops and insects. They've been doing it for 20, 40 years. When they see the data, they're often surprised. The insects come later or earlier than they expected. They fly at different times of night. There are different kinds of insects and so forth. And almost all this information is really highly actionable. You can save money, you can save crops.
It's great.
Any questions from you, Nick?
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
I'm just curious what the trajectory looks like for the hardware part of the business, and is it going to be intertwined always, given the nuance of the sensor requirement that you have, or is there a way to kind of jettison it over time where there's just sort of commodity sensors that so you don't have to even be involved with that?
And it's great. I mean, we'd love to let someone else do that, but our sensors actually do have a very tough job. Some of these insects are less than a millimeter in size, and some are as big as your thumb. There's a high variability in the behavior and size of the insects. We started off with $1,000 sensor, which I made, which is very bad. Solandra has actually gotten the price and quality down dramatically. At some point, it's like a $40 thing, and you just don't care at that point, basically. It's so cheap, it's not worth stealing. You set it and you forget it, and you lose one or two, you don't really care. So yeah, we actually got a lot of help with the sensors, and they become less and less important. Now it's about the user experience and so forth.
Okay, but this is as you kind of look over the next 5 and 10 years, this is going to be part of the business. You're never going to be a pure software business.
Oh no, it's a great question. I could imagine 2 or 3 years from now outsourcing 99 to 100% of the hardware stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
We're doing it now because we want control.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, makes sense.
But at some point, yes, we can push that aside and focus on the other parts of the business.
And I think on a related question for me, how would you compare the data set you have that you're using to identify, these insects to other comparable data sets that exist today?
Just in terms of volume of data, it's hard to imagine. So I started as an academic project, and then for many years, we took larvae insects, we put them inside a room with our sensor, and we watched them from birth to death under every temperature, humidity, air pressure, light pattern you can imagine, to really understand how these things behave over time as they age and so forth. We did this for multiple species. We did it north of the equator, south of the equator, different cohorts. So we have tens of millions of data points, actually maybe hundreds of millions of data points now in our models. It was really hard to get it, but it's a really valuable data source.
Yeah. And if someone wanted to replicate that, they would have to regrow all of these longitudinally for years to collect that data.
They would, yes.
So very, very exciting, and hopeful that you're able to bring this to market, because I don't think there's anything we would love than to get pesticides out of these fields.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Eamon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
With that, it's my pleasure to welcome our 5th presenter, Sana from Rubidection, to the virtual stage.
Okay, hello everybody. Can you see my screen?
We can see you, and you're coming through clearly.
Okay, can you see my shared screen as well?
Yes, we can see your deck.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the presentation from Rubidection. So my name is Sana Gaspard. I'm the CEO of Rubidection and the primary inventor of its technology. I have a doctorate in biomedical engineering with a specialization in medical device development. As CEO of Rubidection, I have spearheaded our fundraising to date, our relationship with corporate partners, as well as our engagement with strategic clinical partners and future customers. Rubidection is a medical device company that's addressing a global healthcare problem known as bed sores by providing caregivers with a low-cost early detection tool. Our vision is to become the global leader in skin health monitoring, to end the needless suffering and painful deaths that devastated the Tassel family. In 2007, Byron Tassel fell from his roof and survived and was rushed to the hospital. While at the hospital, he developed a severe bed sore. It was so severe that his skin was gone, the flesh underneath his skin was gone. And you could see all the way down to his bone. He would eventually die from complications, and his family were awarded $6.4 million in a wrongful death suit. Byron is just one of the 2.3 million Americans who are diagnosed every year, 60,000 of whom are going to die needlessly. This is because if you can detect the condition early, you can prevent it from developing. But early detection is actually very difficult. At the earliest stages, it's just indicated by skin redness. In addition, the early diagnostic tests, manual and unreliable. It's affected by things like the lighting in the room or the color of the patient's skin, causing this preventable healthcare condition to cost the US healthcare system $11 billion in 1 year alone, a cost that insurance is no longer covering if the condition developed within the facility. Given the huge financial cost, the growing population at risk, which is the elderly, and the growing liability, over 96% of the over 200 customers that we have surveyed have indicated that an early detection tool is needed. We're meeting that need with the Rubitect assessment system. It's an FDA Class 1 patented medical device that allows any user to detect a bed sore at its earliest stage. It's used with a digital healthcare app to support care management and telehealth, allowing any caregiver, whether they're a trained clinician or a caregiver at home, to provide better patient care to save lives, save time, and save money, while allowing healthcare facilities to improve patient safety, increase Medicare earnings, and reduce costs, reduce readmission rates, and have accurate data for Medicare reimbursement. To date, we've already raised over $1 million in pre-seed funding. We've used that to develop an initial functional prototype of our system, as well as an initial prototype of our mobile app. We've also gone on to complete an initial clinical testing of our system that shows that we can detect the early biomarkers of a bed sore with 96% accuracy. We can then process those signals to provide you a risk estimation or a diagnosis as to whether the condition is present. Compared to our competition, we're more affordable, we're more reliable, and we're easier to use. Some of the technology on the market currently are not even diagnostic. We feel these competitive advantages will allow us to dominate a $4.1 billion US market, which consists of 2 recurring revenue streams that we will sell into the hospitals, nursing homes, and home health markets. We will access those markets using strategic sales and distribution partners, all of whom here we've reached out to and are excited about what we're doing, because currently they either have tech products in the prevention space or the treatment space, but nothing really in the diagnostic space, and we help meet that void. And this is also a space where these large partners innovate through acquisition, and early detection is where the future is headed. It's becoming such a prominent space that even companies not traditionally in that space, like Procter & Gamble, are trying to figure out how to get into that space. And just in January, they evaluated us as one of 4 companies to be their next billion-dollar brand. With these strategic partners, we can grow to over $153 million in sales, and we're confident we can do that because it's significantly cheaper to prevent a bed sore than it is to treat a bed sore. As a result, anytime we've gotten any press, hospitals and nursing homes have contacted us to either work with us or buy our technology. To get to these customers, we're first focusing on prototype development and testing in 2020 before going on to product development, with the goal of launching our product in 2022 with the support of strategic sales and distribution partners. We're currently looking for $1.6 million to support our work today. That funding will be used for technology development, testing, IP expansion, and also to expand our team. The team behind Rubitect includes a capable team of engineers who are working on technology development and our custom algorithms. We've surrounded ourselves with experts in the field, most notably Dr. Elizabeth Aiello, the former president of the National Pressure Ulcer Advisory Panel. As a team, we're excited to get this product to market, but we're even more excited because bed sores are just the beginning. With the application of our technology to broader wounds and the dermatology space, we can increase our market to over $339 million. But we're starting first with bed sores, because no one should have to die from a bed sore. They're preventable. And with our technology, we'll empower anyone with the ability to detect them early, to reduce costs and save lives. And we invite you all to join us on this journey as we look for investment, team members as we grow, advisors, and clinical and corporate partners as well. And it's a great time to get in, because it's a great investment. We're solving a huge global problem with a proven technology with 2 recurring revenue streams with an over $1 billion market. And we currently have corporate interest in our technology as well as a capable team. So I look forward to working with you guys and seeing how we can take this to market to improve care for millions. Thank you.
Sana, thank you so much for sharing the Rubetection story, and certainly an incredibly worthwhile and important, challenge to be making progress against, which just is not getting the attention from the technology industry that it deserves. I'd love to throw it to our judges for any questions. Maybe Nicole, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sana, I thought this was really exciting. Bed sores are one of those things that we all hear about that really needs to be addressed. And it sounds like you have a solution. This might be a recap, and I apologize for that, but can you articulate like where you guys are in terms of getting the product to market and early studies, and talk through a little bit of that and where you see things going within this initial stage of the $1.6 million in seed funding that you're looking for?
Sure. So where we are right now is that, are you guys able to still see me, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll show you, we currently have a functional prototype that we've used this to complete initial clinical tests. The test that we did showed that we can detect that clinical biomarkers that people are looking for. I'll bring that up so you could see what I'm talking about. So we know we have a system that works. We've done some initial testing on it that shows that we can measure those signals. So this is basically the clinical standard test. You could do it on yourself now if you want to just look for an area that's red and push on it. The problem with that test is that it's not repeatable. As the skin gets darker, you can't see that at all. So people of color, independent of their race, end up getting the most severe cases of the condition, which can be deadly. And so what we're doing to change that is that we're offering them the ability to measure the same biomarkers, but to do it more reliably. And so here's that signal when your skin is red, you push down on it, it goes white, and you release it and it comes back. So we can show that we can actually measure that right now. I've tested it on myself. We've done it in a preclinical study. We've done it in a clinical study. And that 1.6 million in terms of where we are right now, the goal of that funding is to really help us get some more data so that we can move into product development. So we want to expand our IP so that we can cover some of the other markets like diabetic foot ulcers, some aspects of the dermatology space, and also support integration into other supporting or complementary devices. We also want to do a broader clinical test so we have more data going into product development that we can use for marketing, as well as to recruit additional clinical customers and corporate partners. And we want to expand our team because to do all of that work is going to take more people, which means more money.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions from you, Nick?
No, I was just gonna say, speaking of money, congratulations all the progress that you've made with very little money so far.
Yeah, that's been a little hard, but yes, thank you.
I think that's probably understatement of the century, but so congratulations on that. Staying on the money topic, for investors that are looking at your company, do you kind of just see the trajectory towards being acquired by a large company that sees the success in the sales channel and says, I got to have this? Is that what you're thinking about?
Yes, traditionally, that's how things are done in the space. So for example, one of our competitors, the Leaf Healthcare system that you see here, was just on the market maybe for a couple years in terms of launching their product. And because the large corporations understand that the field is headed towards prevention as a means of cost reduction, especially under the Affordable Health Care Act, they got scooped up, in a couple years of being on the market. And it's because that company had also invested. So they also got a double discount because they invested in them early and then they acquired them. So that is the traditional trajectory. My real vision really is to take this global. So I would prefer to work with these partners as a strategic sales and distribution partner, for example, like 3M, who has global offices and has complementary products where my technology can help drive the sales of their treatment products and some of their preventative products. And then as a company, we can grow into a global company and maybe then IPO.
Right.
And yeah, that's my vision.
Makes a ton of sense. That's awesome. Well, congratulations again. It's really exciting.
Thank you.
Any questions from you, Nikhil?
Yeah, thanks so much for the presentation. That was really interesting. What if, you didn't speak about intellectual property or generally, how do you defend the business? We're going to assume that your product's going to be successful and there'll be adoption. But what's the defensive moat that you've got that will prevent other people from copying and deploying similar solutions?
Right, so we're going to have a 2 to 3 pronged strategy. Our first strategy is obviously patenting. Our current technology is already patented. We have an additional patent pending to broaden out the protection to other products. We're also going to patent the specific disposable cover that has to go on there so that it's specific to our device and it will be protected. And then from the software perspective, the custom algorithm that we do for the processing and risk prediction, we're keeping that as a trade secret internally. So we're not patenting that. And we're also from, my background is engineering, so I ask myself the same question. So in terms of a development from a software perspective and a microelectronics perspective, we want to write the code in such a way that if someone tried to hack it, let's say they bought it in China and tried to hack it, that it would self-destroy the internal code, that they wouldn't be able to get it. They might be able to get the instrumentation, but then they will have to spend the same years in development to figure out the analysis.
You should have the device blow up too.
I think I would go into jail for that.
Amazing advice from our judges, as always. Thank you so much, Sana. There was a great question from the audience, but Nikhil, I think, stole it, talking a little bit more about your IP, but you addressed that wonderfully. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate it and are excited to see what comes next for Ubidetection.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, guys, and the great questions. You have a great day and stay safe from COVID.
Yes, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
And a reminder to everyone in the audience, please use your chat vote. I'm really going to do my best to get any of your questions in. If you have questions for our presenters, it's just to the right of the live stream. With that, we're ready for our 6th presenter. It's my pleasure to welcome Jake from Haptic to the virtual stage. Hi, Jake, you're on mute right now. Hi, Jake, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, are we good to go?
You're set. You're coming through loud and clear and we can see your presentation.
Perfect. Touch is core to the human experience. It's the first meaningful communication we have when we enter this world, and we express through our hands and touch before we learn to speak a single word. We have a remarkable ability to use our hands to consume information and to communicate it. Today, the power of touch is amplified through touch-enabled interfaces. We carry touchscreens in our pockets, find them in our cars, our homes, and beyond. But existing technology has barely even begun to tap into the potential of touch. The touchscreens and touch panels of today limit the user's interaction to just the area within the digital sensor panel. What if touch control could escape these confines and expand out into the physical world that already surrounds us? Imagine the possibilities. Patrons at restaurants could order drinks or call their server to the table directly through the table. Residents of assisted living centers could use their entire walls as light switches. Hospital beds could be activated as call buttons, and furniture brought to life with active functionality, and the opportunities go on and on. My name is Jake, and I'm the founder and CEO of Haptic. I've been disrupting industries and building technology companies for 15 years with 3 exits. And this is my most exciting venture by far. At Haptic, we activate the surfaces of our physical world into capable and highly accessible digital interfaces. We wanted to prove our technology, so we deployed it around the world with our first offering, Naki. With Naki discreetly mounted under a table or to a wall, the entire surface comes to life. For example, how nice would it be to crawl into bed and with a few gentle taps anywhere on your nightstand, turn off the lights, set the alarm, adjust the temperature, and do all of that without rattling commands to Alexa and waking up your partner. We're quickly approaching $2 million in revenue, representing 17,000 deployments in 91 countries. And we now have thousands of Nokis actively being used around the world in ways we never even anticipated, with great usage metrics. We've also received repeat purchase orders from businesses both stateside and abroad. We have 7 granted patents that are broad and defensible. Our platform is the only way to affordably, instantly, and scalably gesture-enable the surfaces that already exist within reach all around us. We're also actively collecting sensor data to train our cloud-based gesture recognition engine, which we'll be licensing and offering through SaaS to enterprise. We've also built out a robust smart surface platform that can be vertically integrated, and we're already engaging with Fortune 500 companies to do so. Plus, we have a proven team bringing this technology to the world actively with experience around enterprise IoT, signal processing, human-machine interaction, business development, and globally scaling software. I look forward to answering your questions, and let's tap into our world through the power of haptic.
Thank you very much, Jake, and really appreciate you sharing some information about the haptic story. And it sounds like really exciting early traction and adoption across the market. So congratulations. I'd love to throw it to our judges. Maybe Nikhil, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thanks, Jake. That was great. Can you provide some more details about the units that have been sold, where have they been deployed, and what kind of feedback you're getting from the market?
Yeah, so our initial volume that really gave us the scale that we wanted, we chose kind of a B2C strategy before doing the vertical integration aspect, because we really needed the scale to train our algorithms and also to learn and discover. And so we did actually take it to Kickstarter. We were the largest technology Kickstarter in state history. And so that allowed us to really, with raising very little capital, get that initial production run going. But we actually have already started to distribute the device directly through resellers. Actually, during COVID, we've actually sold 4,000 units. And these are used primarily in the consumer space. The Gen 1 MVP product is a B2C product. But the way people are using it is really interesting. So we find a really strong correlation between, of course, the things that people do on a daily basis and the usage of this control interface. So a lot of people are using it as a lighting interface to control lighting from the bedroom, to in the living room, to boot up the TV and dim the lights and start their speakers through the coffee table. Finding a lost phone is a very popular application, and we're actually about to integrate with Tile to do that. And we have an SDK where people will be able to really expand the horizons. But what's really exciting is for some people, it's life-changing. So we found in the deaf community, a lot of the users are actually not necessarily using Noki as a control interface, but they're creating an intelligent surface. So they're actually embedding, or they're mounting Noki to the inside of their door. And when someone knocks the door, they've mapped that to a light that blinks a certain color. And so now they know, even if they can't hear the door knocking, that someone is knocking. But that same intelligence and awareness, when we embed that into furniture, we have occupancy data as well as accessible usability. If we embed this into doors, vertically integrated, we have usage data, doors opened or closed, intrusion attempts when the door is knocked, as well as contextual actions such as turning on a porch light or sending a notification and so forth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole or Nick, any additional questions?
Yeah, I'm curious about the customization of it, because it sounds like the customers are programming it in different ways depending on their use case. So I'm curious about the flexibility of the platform and versus like what comes in a box.
Could you elaborate on the versus what comes in the box part?
Well, like, I guess so you have a fixed product, but then it can be programmed in different ways. So I'm curious, like, how much flexibility there is versus how much suggestive use of product there is.
So That's a really great question, because it really has to be a careful balance. If you give people too many options, you can develop decision paralysis. And one of our core values is delighting the user, like creating delight. And so part of that is simplicity in the user interface, but also setting it up. So currently the consumer app allows you to set specific patterns, triple tap, 2 double taps, or if you're using it as a sensor, to basically adjust the sensitivity. And we're rolling out a feature to be able to basically customize that. And most users only create several gestures. They're power users that go crazy with a lot of patterns. But there's simply a menu. You see dots, and you select that pattern. So that's how it's done. And when we vertically integrate, they're likely going to be partners that provide sort of parameters that we're going to work within, and probably limit the types of gestures that are allowed. And perhaps we can unlock a broader set through SaaS freemium options to the end user.
Okay, it sounds very cool, basically.
Jake, maybe a quick question that came in from the audience, from Jimmy. This sounds like really cool kind of breakthrough technology, but where do you see the use cases that you think are going to be adopted the quickest and get to kind of mass market adoption? Like, what's your killer use case, if there is one? So the killer use case, what's really exciting is the killer use case actually is B2B. It's but I'll preface the answer with saying, what's the killer use case of a universal TV remote? Is it channel 13 or channel 14? The killer use case for us is actually enabling a lot of legacy industries that are huge, multi-billion-dollar industries. We're talking furniture, we're talking doors, we're talking the IoT space, embedding, and enabling these manufacturers of physical products to actually digitize and create a digital platform. So if you think of the bookstore, and it transformed into Amazon and the Kindle. If you think of the yellow taxi cab, it transformed into Uber, and an app and a virtual fleet of cars. But chairs, furniture, like, you can't create a digital chair. You have to sit in it. You can't create a virtual door. It's a barrier between your private space and the outdoors. So activating these legacy materials like wood and glass and metal, there's never really been a scalable way to do that. The manufacturers of doors, they sell the product. And then there's this whole ecosystem after the product arrives to the end user, the Ring doorbell, the smart lock. And the door companies have no piece of that. And so what we're providing for them, and for the entire $500 billion furniture industry, the $200 billion door industry, access control, is a way to actually create a much higher lifetime value of the customer, and create that basically very differentiated value prop. For the end users, the killer use cases are, it's about accessibility. And we're seeing, primarily lighting and access control, but a huge amount of adoption in the disability space with the visual and hearing disabled. Jake, thank you so much. I apologize. We're going to have to move on to our next presentation, but it was a pleasure to learn about haptic, and can't wait to knock on a door near me and see what happens soon. My pleasure. Thanks a lot. Wonderful. And with that, we're ready for our final 4 pitches. We're going to be hearing from Perch, Mito, Legacy, and Seekster. And with that, it's my pleasure to welcome Michael, CEO of Perch, to the virtual stage.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can, Michael.
Awesome. Hey, it's awesome to meet you guys. I'm Mike with Perch. And before I begin, I'd like to tell you guys a quick story. When coming into university, I sort of had an issue. Coming from a low income family, furthermore, a family of 9, I was the first one in my family to actually go to a big school like USC. But furthermore, after getting accepted, I was $10,000 short on my tuition. Not really knowing what to do and being like the first in my family to go through this rodeo, we really were lost on terms of next steps. I picked up extra work, so did my family. I even started trading crypto, thinking that I could leverage 10K within 3 months, which definitely did not work. And we realized the next best step was honestly just to get a loan. We approached the Sallie Mae's, the Discover Student Loan programs of the world, but unfortunately got denied everywhere for 2 reasons. A, I did not have a credit score, but also B, my family finances just were too low to co-sign me, leaving us in a really terrible situation. With this, I was luckily able to get a grant to start my first year. But the problem definitely existed that there was really no viable way for young adults or for myself to properly manage and start building their credit. When I got to university, I talked to a lot of college students about this. Matter of fact, I talked to 3,500 of them across 6 universities in a 3-year case study. What I learned from this was a couple of things. First of all, young adults are worried about their finances. It's an unspoken reality that our generation does not know how to manage their finances and start building their credit. Furthermore, regulations have made it difficult for credit building pipelines to emerge in the college space. Currently, the Credit Card Act of 2008, coming from the recession that happened, has limited financial services abilities to actually even market on college campuses, widening this gap. And lastly, credit is truly broken. People from the low to medium income community, or furthermore, young adults who really haven't had a first step yet, can't afford to go into debt to build their credit. With this, we created Perch. Perch is a mobile app that helps people build credit without having to go into debt or increase their typical expenses. We plug into users' existing lifestyle from your rent, utilities, subscriptions, and turn these into credit building pipelines. We furnish data points that typically, if we're not paying them, hurts your score to the bureaus when you do pay them. That can actually increase your score, but it's just an unspoken truth currently in the market. We could do this with rent, utility, and phone bill payments, and people see a result in their credit score within 2 weeks. Furthermore, we debitize subscriptions, allowing people to build credit off of their typical expenses without, again, having to go into debt. And furthermore, help people auto pay their credit cards, swiping their credit cards wherever they want and having it be paid like a debit card and not having to worry about those fees. And lastly, we've created savings accounts and gamified financial literacy that really helps people understand their money. This is really what we provide. From credit scores to pre-approved financial products, automated credit building, and even group savings and goals, we really provide the full pipeline from going from nothing to something to a robust product, really all inside our app. And of course, it's completely free. We never plan to charge someone to begin their financial journey with us at Perch. This is Sam, actually one of our earliest users. Sam was my Uber driver back in LA when I was going back to university at USC. He was living in LA while his daughter was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I was asking him, well, why don't you live in Michigan with your daughter? For the last 4 years, he's been trying to move to Michigan, but couldn't because he got denied from every apartment out there because his credit score was too low. Using our product, Sam was able to report 24 months of his past rent payments, which brought his score up from a 560 to a 714, literally in 2 weeks. And this is his actual credit score. Sam moved to Michigan, got a new job in real estate, and now lives with his daughter full time. Now you're probably wondering really quickly, how do we make money if the product's free? And this is pretty simple. We monetize through user-driven value add. Every time someone uses our platform to build credit with their subscriptions, not only do they not incur a cost, but we actually monetize from the subscription companies, earning 95 basis points for every transaction that happens through our app. Secondly, our group savings, where you can save for Coachella or any event with your friends, earns us 100 basis points on the interest that we actually share with our users on a 12-month APY spread. And lastly, we help our users after building their credit find that first credit card, or even for myself, that first loan opportunity, where we actually monetize $50 to $75 per lead. And we make sure that these are non-predatory options. Where we are now, we actually raised over $100,000 in non-dilutive pitch competitions, helping us get off the ground and make this business a reality. We were also an early decision to Y Combinator Summer 2020 batch, which we actually just graduated, and we're looking forward to the journey ahead. This is our team. I run shop here. My co-founder actually started coding when he was 9, had his first company when he was 16, and me and him met actually in university a year and a half back. me and Ayush have built this team around us really to solve this problem of financial access for the college market. Thank you, guys.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing some information about Perch. I think as I've told you before, I love what you're doing. I think it's such an exciting space, and it's such a group of individuals that are underserved by the financial services products that exist today for no good reason. Simply because they haven't been an attractive kind of banking population historically. And so excited about what you're doing. Would love to throw it over to our judges for any questions. Maybe Nicole, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, I love what you're doing too, Michael. It's a total game changer for a lot of people and should change lives. And I think brings more people into the economy in a way that's more meaningful while doing it. So it's like the win-win-win that works well for everybody. My biggest question is really related to the business model. Have you guys done projections to see, like, is the revenue that you intend to generate going to be sufficient to get yourselves off the ground and be a profitable company? And do you have any projections that you're willing to show or that you want to show in this forum?
Yeah, so we are actually unit economic positive with our users if they fall between two buckets. Either A, an inactive user, someone who uses us to start their credit building journey and let it automatically build their credit on the back end. We monetize by month 3 on that user. For someone who's a little bit more active, they're looking for their first credit card using our savings platform. We actually monetize in that first month, where more activity just brings more profitability to our business.
And when you say monetize, like, what would be the net on a per individual basis?
For an inactive user, we monetize about a 40% margin. For someone who is very active on our app, it can range from 70 to about 85%.
Thank you.
Nick, any questions for Michael? You're on mute.
If I had to boil down the unique angle, is it the debit to credit building kind of bridge? And is there anybody else doing that? Do I understand that right?
Yeah, so this is honestly a pretty new space. And it's actually really common in the EU, where there's traditional pipelines like a credit line, credit card, loans that normally helps you build your credit. But there's nothing for people who don't have access to those services. So this non-traditional data that we're collecting, your rent payments, utility payments, phone bill payments, these are seen as credit worthy, just no one's reporting them to the bureaus. So we went out there and made a relationship with all 3 bureaus, and we report this data, verify it internally, and ship it to them over time. And that's what makes this product so special in terms of building credit.
And no one else is doing it right now.
There is a couple people in the space, emerging leaders. You can look at Level Credit, Grow Credit, Rental Karma, but currently only 5% of people in the US who have rent are actually reporting this data. So a huge opportunity. Yeah.
Cool, very cool.
Any questions for you, Nicole?
Just a quick follow-up to Nicole's question. So if we were to model out what the lifetime value of a customer is, firstly, how long do you estimate in your projections to have someone on the platform? And based on average activity, what dollar amount do you think you'll be able to get from a customer?
Yeah, it definitely depends on where they are in their life cycle. So for example, Credit Karma monetizes on people who are looking for that first financial product. And sorry, I live in downtown LA if it's loud. So where we saw opportunity was there's definitely a market for people who are looking for their first credit card. And that's probably the most profitable segment, is that $50 to $75 acquisition we get for someone finding that financial product. That actually helped pay for the next 25 to 50 people on our app. Our actual operation cost is about $2 for the first month, and it sits around 75, 80 cent month after. So with that, and also the 95 basis points that we're earning on an average $45 to $60 spend, we can monetize off of a user and probably have them for at least a year to 3 years. Can hit between $75 to $350 depending on the user and their activity.
Great, thanks.
And one final question from Alice in the audience. Do you have any data about what your typical credit score increase is when someone starts using Perch? What should a user expect?
Yeah, actually my first time building my credit was actually with Perch. I was credit invisible, couldn't get a credit card until I actually built out this platform. My score went from 0 to a 676 in 2 weeks. I'm currently sitting above a 700 only using the Perch platform and the data points that we provide. People with no credit, you'll see your score go up to about a subprime 670 to 690. Those with bad credit, you can see a score of 714 or higher within those 2 weeks.
Thank you, Michael. And maybe just one final question. Are you getting this transaction data through something like a Plaid linkage, or how are you getting into consumers' credit card or transaction history?
Yeah, you actually got it. We use Plaid to monitor the bank transactions, and then we've been created internal tools to verify that data and make sure it's true.
Yeah, very, very cool. It's exciting to see people taking advantage of that new infrastructure to do things that never were possible before. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing the Perch story, and looking forward to hearing how it goes.
Thank you.
With that, it's my pleasure to welcome our eighth presenting company. We'll welcome Haley from Mito to the virtual stage.
Hi, I'm Haley Marie Keith, CEO of Mito Material Solutions. A century ago, the most industrial materials were wood and metal, but today the new standard is composite materials. A market currently worth $137 billion, the composite industry includes fiberglass, carbon fiber, and thermoplastic materials. This industry is growing because of the need to lightweight and push the limits without sacrificing performance. But composites have their limitations too, like the epoxy or glue that holds it all together. The epoxy can be incredibly brittle, affecting performance and part life integrity. In many industries, this prevents composites from being the go-to choice. At Mito Materials, we produce patented graphene modifiers with a proprietary functionalization technique that enhances these composites. Our additive's unique chemistry makes it extremely versatile, allowing part manufacturers to create tougher, lighter, and more durable products. Compared to other leading technologies, Mito is able to deliver higher performance at lower loading levels, making us accessible to more cost-sensitive industries. For example, 2 pounds of our material makes 2,000 pounds of polymer, epoxy, thermoplastic, which is enough for 3,000 carbon fiber bike frames. Our products also integrate seamlessly into existing manufacturing process, and we use that niche to target our customers. To date, our pipeline has a total opportunity of $124 million, with customers spanning across transportation, marine, and recreational sectors looking to shed weight, increase durability, and improve elemental resistance. Our first piloting customer is one of the largest semi-truck trailer manufacturers who's actually making the transition from steel to composite panels. Other additives didn't fit the bill, but with Mito, the goal of a lighter semi-truck trailer is achievable. We work with our manufacturing partners to deliver our product wholesale to formulators as our customers pull us through the supply chain. This allows us to integrate into various products at volume without changing current manufacturing costs and processes. The team we've assembled at Mito is a balanced mix of technical and business professionals with experience in chemical sales, manufacturing, and composites integration, with industry experts who advise us weekly. Mito has 2 issued patents and 3 products in development. We're working with amazing supporting organizations, including Techstars, the National Science Foundation, and the Heritage Group, including a Series Seed investors that just helped us close a round last week. When I started Mito, I believe that advanced materials should not only be accessible to advanced industries. We know that in order to take humanity to entirely new heights, we need to be disruptive and versatile with our technology in order to push materials into the next frontier. Join Mito today in empowering all industries to use the next generation of materials. Thank you. Oops.
Thank you so much, Haley. Really, really exciting to hear about the progress thus far with Mito. And I will say again, congratulations on closing the recent Series Seed. What an accomplishment. And, hopefully you can now spend some time focused on building the business and the product instead of running around fundraising. But I'd love to throw it over to our judges for any questions. Maybe Nick, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm just curious kind of how you see the business evolution now that you've kind of closed a little bit of this capital that you need, but what is a trajectory for your type of business in the sort of specialty chemicals or advanced materials? What does it look like over the next kind of 5 years relative to
So the chemical industry is a lot of major players. If you go back down to the supply chain at the base level, it's a lot of big companies that are too big to usually innovate big battleships, right? So in our space, we've seen a lot of innovation happening in the startup world, growing this material, finding users, use cases, validating the product and technology. And really, startups are taking on the risk of scaling the product, scaling the user base. And once we kind of achieve those milestones, the bigger companies start paying attention and actually want to add us into their portfolio of specialty chemicals. Or there's an opportunity, of course, for us to build our own company and our own brand and essentially become the Intel or Gore-Tex of composite materials with our additive platform that is not just this one product, but actually a series of products with different chemical functionalities, allowing composites to enhance different properties.
Cool.
Nicole, any questions from you?
I'm just, if you could dive in a little bit into some of the more technical components in terms of like what makes this particularly special, and do you have, you know, are you patenting it, or like what is like the secret to your sauce here?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. I try not to get too technical in the pitch, but so what we're doing is we're taking two known materials and chemicals, which is graphene oxide and POS, polyoligomeric cyclochloroxane. We're hybridizing those two functional polymers together. And we believe that melding or coexisting of these materials actually is the secret sauce, because it allows for a better dispersion and less agglomeration, and actually allows us to have a much lower percent by weight concentration to the polymer. So Mito needs 0.1% to mix in, competing products need 5 to 40%. And this is because the hybridization of the molecules, they create better despacing, which create better dispersion. And then you get all the enhanced benefits of graphene oxide and POS. But there, like I said, are other different chemical variations that we're working on and scaling. We have patented those two base formulations, and we're working on patenting it vertically. So those base formulations in conjunction with different polymer systems as we move up the market and value chain. And then we have a proprietary functionalization technique that we are keeping trade secret for now, but are investigating the opportunity to patent.
Great. And just out of curiosity, like why wouldn't somebody have done it that way before?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when graphene came onto the market, it was graphene is the wonder material, and it is amazing. But people had to work with scaling graphene, looking at what graphene could do, then what graphene oxide could do. And with Mito, we kind of entered the market at this unique time where graphene oxide was already a thing. It was commercialized, it was scaled. Same with POS. And we saw the two things working really well individually, but they agglomerated and created weak points. So what if you brought them together? And that's really where the innovation came through.
Nice. Gotta love our scientists.
Thank you. Any final questions, Nikhil? Oh, you're on mute, Nikhil.
Sorry. Just a quick question around scaling. As you raise money, is it continue? Do you see yourself building the product, or do you really see yourself building the IP and then making that available to other people to go scale? Or do you want to build the manufacturing capability yourself to be able to scale the business?
Well, so we contract all of our manufacturing out, but I think it's important for Mito to own that scaled contracting or that scaled manufacturing process. And so that's what our team is working on now, is scaling that. We're working with a contract manufacturer where we've produced kilogram quantities of the material, and we can produce up to 125 kilograms currently. And so I think it's important to understand, to scale both, scale your IP, but also scale your manufacturing properties and opportunities, because then you understand the entirety of your value chain and supply chain. So you know how your product is going to work at every piece and every step of the puzzle. And what we're realizing now is that Mito was creating value in every step of the supply chain, because if you're creating a polymer where you only need 0.1% by weight and you lightweight the end material, you're saving shipping costs, you're saving manufacturing costs, you're making the processes of manufacturing these composite materials ultimately more efficient. And so we're building that value, and by doing both, growing and scaling both at the same time, using non-dilutive and investor capital, we're able to realize all of the value throughout the value and supply chain. And I think that's important at this early stage.
Great, thanks.
Haley, thank you so much for sharing the Mito journey, and excited to see some new lightweight materials out there, across the globe. So congratulations and good luck on what comes next.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to pitch amongst these amazing and diverse founders and great panel of judges. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Haley. With that, we're ready for our second to last presentation. It's my pleasure to welcome Khalid, the CEO of Legacy, to the virtual stage.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Khalid Koutaili, and I run Legacy, and we're the online fertility clinic focused on men. Now, fertility rates across the world are dropping. The UK just announced their lowest birth rate in recorded history. This is for a couple of reasons. One is that folks are just choosing to delay having a child, and the other is accelerating demographic trends. So the median age has gone up. People are meeting later, they're getting married later, and as a result, they're trying to have children at a later age, at which point they're more likely to face fertility challenges. All of this is happening in a world where global sperm quality has gone down by about 50%, 50, over the last 4 decades. But we still talk about fertility very much as a women's issue, even though we know that male factor infertility is just as likely as female factor infertility to cause infertility in couples. But the fertility industry has built its business models around highly lucrative treatments that focus on female fertility, like IVF or egg freezing, in part because they've done so in a very localized way. But what this means is the male fertility industry has not seen innovation in literally decades, and men are not particularly excited about going to a clinic, and they thus avoid fertility experiences that are designed to keep them away because they're just not that profitable. Enter Legacy. All a man has to do is go to our website, order online, and he'll receive our mail-in kit the next morning. He produces a sample from home, we pick it up, send it to the clinic, and get it tested. It costs less than half of what it would at a local fertility clinic because we operate nationally and are able to operate at scale. Because we have an extensive data set, we're able to offer personalized and data-driven results and recommendations. And best of all, there's no clinic visit required. And if they want to speak to a fertility specialist, we have nurses and doctors on staff who are ready for a telehealth appointment anytime. So a client going through the process would receive an overall assessment of the 5 key factors of male fertility. They'd see a ranking of where they fall relative to other men in the global population. And they'd also get personalized lifestyle recommendations telling them how to improve their sperm quality, which is particularly important for couples that are actively trying to conceive. Now that market is about 5 million couples each year. And this market, like the other 3 I'm going to talk about, is growing each year. So we know that infertility rates are on the rise, currently affecting about 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 couples. We also know that over 2 million employees are seeing fertility benefits coverage from their employers in a world in which fertility benefits have become the must-offer benefit for employers. The military is increasingly looking at fertility preservation in a world where their troops are at risk of being wounded or killed in action. And there's increasing insurance coverage for medical conditions like cancer that can cause infertility. And this is true in about 16 states and counting, and going up every year. Now, as a company, we've grown almost 30% month on month over the past 1.5 years. We've built out our NPS score to 52 in an industry where the average score is below 0. We've built out extremely attractive LTV to CAC ratios, in part because we've reduced our CAC by 300% since the beginning of the year. And all of this translates to predictable recurring revenue. And in fact, this leads to economies of scale. Most recently, we brought down our cost of goods sold by about 50%. Now, when I started on this journey, I had no idea the kind of talented folks that would join me, like Sarah, who worked at Extend Fertility, the leading egg freezing clinic in the United States, or like Dr. Rami Abughayda, who's a trained urologist, studied at Harvard, and was a researcher at Brigham and Women's, or like Varun, who worked at NASA, Dave, who scaled Y Combinator companies to 10 million in ARR and more, like Meryl, who's lived and worked in multiple continents, or like Matt, who's a graduate of Harvard College, Harvard Business School, and has also worked internationally. The cool thing about this is that the leading male fertility experts are so excited about what we're doing. They've all joined our advisory board because this industry has literally not seen innovation in decades, I think since the 1970s. Now, don't just take it from me. Over the past 15 months, we were incubated through the Harvard Innovation Labs. We've spent the last 12 months, including COVID, at GSV Labs in Boston, and we also graduated from Y Combinator about a year ago. We raised our seed funding from investors like Bain Capital Ventures, Tribe Capital, and Section 32. And we signed partnerships with major institutions like Veterans Advantage, which serves over 1 million active duty military and veterans, like one of the leading fertility clinics in the United States, and like one of the leading fertility benefits providers that are also growing quickly. And the judges have all talked a lot about international expansion, and that's something that has always been on our radar because this is actually an international problem and one that we're actively working on solving, not just in the US, but in Canada, Europe, and the Middle East. Thank you.
Khaled, thank you very much for sharing the legacy story with us and you know, really exciting sustained progress since we saw you a year ago, you know, at the East Coast finals. And it's, you know, congratulations on everything.
We're going bigger this year.
I'd love to throw it to our judges to see if there are any questions. Maybe Nikhil, do you want to kick us off? You're on mute.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Alec. Khaled, thanks for the presentation. Great progress over the last year. If you were to, in sort of one bullet point or maybe two, define what the core competence of legacy is, how would you do that?
Yeah, it's a team. In a world where the traditional fertility industry is extremely antiquated and outdated, you frankly don't have innovation, in part because these are folks who haven't had to innovate. They treat fertility and fertility solutions as healthcare solutions to healthcare challenges. We've totally turned that on its head. We've gone national from day one, and we've built out a team of healthcare experts, fertility experts, growth experts, and honestly, that's what's made all the difference.
Thank you.
Any questions from you, Nicole?
Yeah, actually, could you go back to the slide that showed some of your data about the CAC and
Sure.
that type of thing?
Sure, give me a second. Let me just share my screen again. Let's see if it will work. All right. This the one you're talking about?
Okay, yes. Actually, the one that kind of like was just jaw dropping for me was a 52 NPS score.
Yeah.
What is and like a 3x CAC reduction? I mean, these numbers are just kind of astounding. So I'm curious, like on the 52 NPS score, what is your experience with that? Like, what is it that people like that much?
Yeah. I love this question. And I think one of the reasons why the NPS score is high is because we are dealing with people at an extremely emotional part of their life. Typically, these are folks who've been trying to conceive for 6, 9, 12 months. They haven't found solutions. They've been treated like numbers. It's been extremely impersonal. And here we are. We've actually doubled down, and one of our other core competencies is actually client services. We don't even call them patients. We offer everyone a free onboarding call. We walk them through the process. We set up an appointment for them to talk through the results with a real human being. And I think people are consistently just really surprised that this exists at a relatively low price point. And to be honest, I think the other side of it is just the NPS in the industry sucks as a whole. And that's an issue endemic in healthcare in the US.
That totally makes sense. Can you talk through a little bit about like how many users you've had so far and what what is the price point that you charge people?
Sure. So we've had a couple thousand users already. And our price point right now, so for a basic test, you're looking at $195. That covers a full clinical analysis, shipping both ways. You get assigned a personalized client service advisor, as well as all the recommendations and everything we do that's data-driven.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any questions from you, Nick?
I think you might be on mute, Nick.
Oh.
Sorry, just why is the revenue recurring and not episodic?
So we have a mix of recurring and non-recurring. So after the testing, we actually actively encourage folks to cryopreserve their sperm. So similar to egg freezing about 5 to 7 years ago, sperm freezing has kind of hit that inflection point where it's growing. And so we convert a certain percentage of our clients into long-term cryo storage. So that is actually part of the LTV because folks who freeze their sperm typically do so for 10 years or more. We know this from existing industry metrics.
So do you have a partnership with the company that does that, or that you offer that?
The cryopreservation, we actually have a partnership. The clinical analysis we do ourselves.
And they pay you on a recurring basis a percentage of their recurring revenue?
So what happens is a client who goes through our process and chooses to freeze their sperm would pay anywhere between $100 to $150 a year. and then we pay a certain amount to the cryo-storage provider each year. We actually make SaaS level margins on that.
Oh, I see. So you are the toll booth on that. And
Yeah.
You pass the money on.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you. One quick question from the audience. This is from Kara. It could be argued that the fertility market historically has been really focused on female infertility, and I think largely just due to sexism and infertility being treated as a women's issue. We've come a long way, but do you think we're ready for mass adoption of kind of male fertility solutions, and what are you seeing there?
Yeah, I love this question, Kara, as well. And I'll just preface by saying that actually we totally rebranded, and one of our big learnings as a company was that about 50% of purchases are actually driven by the female partner of the man assuming a heterosexual relationship. And so we realized we needed to rebrand in a way that was much more gender neutral. We redid a lot of our content as a result. The fact is this: the stats don't lie, right? For couples nowadays, if you're trying to have a child, you're not able to within 12 months or more, it's about as likely to come from the male as it is from the female in a heterosexual relationship. And let's face it, it's much more accessible, it's much more affordable, it's much less invasive for a guy to test a sperm from home. So for us, we believe this will be the default first step for couples before they even explore the female fertility side.
Very, very interesting perspective, and again, congratulations on the progress that you've made to date. It's an exciting space that you're working in.
It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of puns. I can tell you that much.
I have no doubt you've done a good job tonight, Cal. Thank you.
Thanks.
And with that, we're ready for our final presentation. It's my pleasure to welcome Artie, CEO of Seekster, to the virtual stage.
All right. Thank you everyone for waiting. I know it's been a long day and amazing presentations by all the entrepreneurs and great companies. And my name is Artie Ariampour. I'm dialing in from San Diego, California, and you might see some glare from the California fires, but what's really on fire is Seekster in San Diego, and no pun intended, but we created the first longitudinal health record in real time, and I'm going to show you how and why everyone is seeking health data. And it's not just because we're in a pandemic, but the pandemic has for sure accelerated digital health to a whole nother level. Our team has been doing business in biotech and in data science for over 10 years together. We built multiple different companies, and our last company actually had a $1 billion exit with just $3 million. We were very fortunate to take 2 weeks off after that and decide what we were going to build. And since we were part of building some of the most groundbreaking genetic testing diagnostic tests out in the market, we were part of the dark side of basically siloing data. So we became really interested in if there was a way to create the mint.com of health data, or the Plaid of health data, with a B2B business model. Healthcare's fundamental problem has been all this siloed data. So I know there's a lot of folks on the call here. We all sit in different metropolitan cities. We carry lots of different data, whether it's wearable data, DNA data, electronic health record data. One system doesn't talk to one another. So, this problem known as interoperability was a problem that we accidentally kind of fell upon when we were trying to create the mint.com of your health data. With Seekster, we remove all of the data at warp speed. We have, in the last 4.5 years, integrated 90% of the digital health records of the United States. And we're not limited just to the US. We are global in both EU, some parts of Asia, and South America and the Middle East. It takes only minutes to seconds sometimes to connect all your data in real time. And it's plug and play. And it's not just data aggregation. We took one more step back in 2016 when I founded the company and had 3,000 brave women tell us that they wanted a health timeline for longitudinal patient records. And so we focused our product on the person, putting the patient, the person at the center of their healthcare. And what we built for enterprise, where we've gotten mass coverage, we've been on the cover of Wall Street Journal, twice, lots of coverages and awards because of our platform and how it really hits home with any person. And what I love about Seekster is you can be talking to, a innovator, an entrepreneur, a medical scientist, a PhD scientist, a chronically ill patient, a caregiver, and everyone understands that, you need cutting edge technology to actually crack interoperability. And we built this scalable solution and it's deployed and we're generating revenue, and I'll get to that in a second. But why are we so different, and why have we been able to do this where billions of dollars of our healthcare expenditure has been spent and no one has been able to crack the code on interoperability? It's really simple. People always worry about provider to provider. No one ever started with the person, the patient at the center. And what we've done is we've created a back-end data model where we retrieve, parse out, and harmonize and standardize all of the data so that UCSF, NYU, Cleveland Clinic, Florida State, and UCSD data can reside in one cloud in a shared, secured environment, creating this longitudinal health record. Our first customer was actually pharma, and we didn't anticipate it because we actually didn't have a business plan. After building, a very large company in clinical diagnostics, our business plan was just, to build something very mission oriented. And I always sincerely believed if you kept true to the mission, then the business would come. Just after my presentation at JP Morgan Healthcare Conference in San Francisco, right before the pandemic, unfortunately came to about, just this January, we were backed by Takeda Pharmaceuticals, a top 10 pharmaceutical company. And we realized that, there's a massive opportunity within pharma to start with. Now, we already have built the pharma platform, and here's a snapshot with what we can share around how you manage research subjects and participants in trials, at the same time empowering families to collect and own and share their data. We also created the patient platform where the patients can actually control and monitor and track and share all that data as well. More importantly, we provide pharma comprehensive data faster than anything out there. And we create that longitudinal health record because there's no better person or entity to actually stitch together all their data than you, the patient, the person, or the family. More importantly, I'm so proud to tell you that we have multi-million-dollar SaaS agreements. I raised $5 million on seed, put the first $1 million in myself, and our business model is a one-time annual license, and then it's a subscription fee where we charge per activation of the patient record polls, and then it's a PMPM or PMPY depending on the business model. I could share a little bit about the projects and the lifetime value here. As you can see, we're part of the largest COVID-19 clinical trial now for plasma patients, where we can eliminate the physician calls and paper by becoming the decision support system for BioLife services. We're also becoming part of the central data centralization hub for Takeda in such a quick time, and just quickly as less than 9 months here. We have master services agreements and signed SOWs. And like I said, I can't share the revenue, but what I can share, it's in the 7 figures. And we're doing a lot around global commission around rare disease for patients that have rare disease, and they have binders of data, and we basically create that digital binder. What's next after pharma?
Wrap up in the next 30 seconds, please, Artie.
What's next after pharma? There's multiple opportunities in various different verticals and our target markets there, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in the Q&A. The biggest tailwind is we became law on March 9th, and everyone is seeking health data, and that's why I started Seekster. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Artie, and a great quick wrap up there at the end. I'd love to throw it over to our judges for any questions. Nick, do you want to kick us off? You're on mute, Nick.
Sorry. Congratulations on what you built. And there was a lot to cover in a short amount of time. But clearly, the ability to get data from people is critical to everything that you're trying to do, right? Can you just talk again about the funnel to get people's data and why you think you can get it kind of reliably and at scale, and kind of also like what constitutes scale such that you've got this installed base that enables all the things that you're trying to do?
Yeah, great question. And I think two things. One, we didn't know what we were really solving until we figured out that, wow, we can hit it at scale. So for example, we have 3,694 major hospitals integrated into Seekster currently, right? It's a white label. So we're basically the Intel inside. And the reason why we can scale is because of how it's person-centric, where, Nick, Jennifer, Stacy, Bob, Adam, Artie, whoever is the person who actually connects their data. The same way that you bring your Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and student loans and you see your net worth. I always ask the question of what about our net health? And, the COVID-19, obviously pandemic, accelerated our business opportunities because of remote patient monitoring and how everyone is at home and decentralized trials and all that good stuff. But it's our back-end data model that takes unstructured data and structurizes it within seconds and minutes.
But what are you actually allowed to show people without tripping the wire of providing a recommendation? I mean, because 23andMe and others, that was a life or death situation, when they kind of dealt with that. So what are you actually able to show?
The reason why that was life or death is because they didn't go through the FDA. And if you Google Seekster, you'll see this is just coincidence. But as of just a couple of days ago, we got our FDA compliance letter, which is so hard to get. It takes two years of plus work, a lot of money to do that. But we are 21 CFR Part 11 FDA compliant. But we're not acting like a doctor. We're not giving any recommendations. You can layer in AI and analytics, right? If you have the data, we piped out the nation where all the data resides in silos and can bring that together in a longitudinal health record through the person.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Any questions, Nicole?
Yeah, I'm curious about your go-to-market strategy and what it looks like as you build out the team from here.
Yeah, so currently I got 25 plus people on the team, and our go-to-market right now is it's being deployed at pharma. Publicly, what I can share, because it's public, we have a lot of business with Takeda, but we also have 3 other top 10 pharmaceutical companies that have gone to contracting that we're generating revenue on as well. And so that just happened right after Takeda, and there'll be some amazing announcements on Seekster coming in the future. But I'm not actually so excited about the pharma industry. That's great because it's paying for, the bills and all that stuff. Lots of people are coming towards us to do a significant Series A raise. And, I don't even know if I want to do a Series A. I'd only want to do it because of growth into other healthcare verticals and growth into areas, Nicole, where there's already aggregated users. For example, if you take the payer markets, right? It's much, much larger than the pharmaceutical clinical trial markets, right? Just, with United Healthcare Group, you have 50 million lives. If we capture just 1% of that, it's 500,000 users.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Any final questions from you, Nikhil?
Yeah, Artie, thanks. I see all the business opportunities on the pharma and the payer side instead of on the B2B side. When you began, I thought, the solution was going to be for the patient. And so, but everything seems to be monetized and focused around building solutions for either the, could be provider, but certainly pharma and payer side. Tell me a little bit about the patient side and what's the value proposition for the patient, and why should the patient be providing access to all of their data to Seekster in order to provide for them to take all that data and to be able to monetize it by providing it to farmers or to payers?
Yeah, so great question there. I think you raised, Nicole, a couple of things that I want to address. Number one, we don't own the data, and we don't make money off the data. We make money off actually the aggregation and us being a patient engagement platform, because imagine we've created the Salesforce.com business model with a Mint-like patient experience. And the reason why we started with the patient, that was another secret sauce of ours. I knew from just, being in healthcare for the past almost 20 years here and having, pitfalls and successes, that if you start with the patient first, you can learn so much about how that patient engagement journey and that patient journey hits. And because we are focusing on that longitudinal health record, which sets us apart compared to anyone else, not even Apple has figured this out with their acquisition of Glimpse and having 800 physicians. And the reason being is because they didn't start with the patients. You have to start with the user experience first, and then you figure out how it would hit on the scalability. The business opportunities on the B2B came every time I would demo the platform, and some CEO or CTO or CIO of a pharmaceutical company or a payer company or a life insurance company, any type of enterprise that is interested in an interoperability solution, which they all are, we saw that could be such a huge win instead of me trying to go raise $200 million and go direct to consumer. And so, I think there's so much marketing that has to happen versus, we've been able to bootstrap this with just $5 million. We built an enormous business. It's revenue generating. We got top 10, companies that are customers. And, usually Series C companies don't get to that stage with the companies that we're dealing with.
So what's the patient experience like? Is it a free app for them? And they then permission on the gathering of data from all of the different data sources?
Yeah, so to shed a little bit more light on that, I'll give you an example. So let's say for Takeda, they're running a sleeping narcolepsy trial of 1,000 patients, right? Takeda gets a fully branded Seekster white label. It's powered by Seekster, but they get our patient engagement platform where they launch it to their 1,000 individuals, and Takeda pays us so that, for the annual licensing fee plus the 1,000 folks being in that trial for 12 plus months or 36 months, whatever the deal is, but the patient never pays. And the patient, via the consent of them, shares the data. Right now, it's so hard to get longitudinal data, to get outcomes data on patients. We've cracked the code on that. On top of that, it becomes a decision support system for their different use cases. There's multiple different use cases, and that's a whole cocktail conversation.
I got it. Thank you.
Yep. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you so much, Artie. Really exciting to learn about Seekster. And again, congratulations on the progress and the real momentum towards cracking the holy grail of EHR and getting some real interoperability here. It's incredibly exciting. Thank you again
so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for your guys' time.
And with that, we had 10 incredible early stage pitches, a great group of founders. I don't at all envy our judges having to make their final determinations, but we're going to take 4 to 5 minutes right now, tally up the scores, get everything ready to go. And we're going to be back before you know it to announce who our winners are, who's getting the cash prizes, and who will be advancing to the global finals. Please stay tuned. We'll be back before you know it.
What if you could easily expand your company into any new country within hours? Would you succeed faster? Globalization Partners simplifies international business by enabling you to hire teams in new countries without setting up foreign branch offices, and with software that puts onboarding and managing your global team at your fingertips. You find the talent and we put your team members on our already existing in-country payroll. With Globalization Partners, you never have to worry about the challenges that come with setting up international companies, managing payroll, or navigating benefits. We do it all. Are you ready to see how it works? Getting started is fast and seamless. First, you choose the country you want to expand into, then decide which benefits to offer, all from pre-selected, locally compliant employment contract terms. At the click of a button, we send our employment contract for you to review. Once approved, we issue the employment contract from our local entity to your candidate. Then our in-country HR team makes sure your candidate is comfortable with the terms of employment. With greater than 96% client satisfaction, you can be rest assured that your local candidate will be happy too. Our team members are always just a call away when you need personalized HR advice. By putting the world's talent at your fingertips, Globalization Partners enables you to succeed faster, hire the world.
We found Leighton in January of 2020. Prior to that, we had never even explored or probably even knew about the R&D tax credit.
We're an Austin-based data strategy company. We saw a need in the market for modern data strategy that just wasn't being served by other tools.
We provide solutions for customers across the entire data value chain. Cash on hand is incredibly valuable, and the team at Leighton helped us not only discover an incredible tax credit we could take advantage of, which was literally cash on hand for our company, but also made sure we claimed it the right way.
It was relatively simple. I had a couple calls with Leighton and they asked some very simple questions. I answered those questions about what we do. Leighton helped with the paperwork with our CFO, and after that, it was done. We took the money that we received and reinvested it straight into research for our product.
I'm responsible for helping us take solutions to market. And so I'm over sales and marketing and channel relationships. But in order to do my job, I have to have something great to sell. And so this R&D tax credit meant that my CTO and my CPO could actually proactively hire engineers and developers and accelerate not only development, but product roadmap. And so it was really exciting not only to receive the tax credit, but also to have an additional value we could provide to our customer base. So it's really nice to know that this is a program that we can claim year over year over year, is predictable, is slated, and that we can prepare for.
We absolutely plan to do this every year. There's no reason why we wouldn't.
That stability is also something that my leadership team really appreciated. And they help people do this every single day. Whenever we partnered with Leighton, the investment in that relationship came back easily tenfold because they were able to help us capture a program designed to foster innovation, but do it in the right way.
There are many reasons a company may want to expand internationally. Some companies might want to hire salespeople and enter new markets. Other companies might want to find new talent or put a client services team member near their international clients. Perhaps the most common reason to expand is simply because there's measurable demand. If you're seeing international interest in your goods and services, it might be time to take the leap. But carving out new business territory is never easy, especially when it involves navigating country-specific economic, regulatory, and political environments. You need to weigh the rewards of greater profits and increased market presence with challenges of building and managing a team in a new country. For companies that haven't yet settled on a long-term global strategy, it could be hard to justify spending the time and money required to set up an offshore subsidiary. We've got you covered. We can help you test the waters in new countries quickly and easily. At Globalization Partners, it's our mission to make it easy for you to hire the world's brightest talent anywhere around the globe. Borders aren't boundaries. Globalization Partners can help you hire and onboard employees across 6 continents in more than 170 countries, taking the burden of global expansion off your shoulders and putting it onto ours. You find the talent that you want to hire, and we put them on our already compliant local payroll in country, so you don't have to manage any of the legal or regulatory requirements associated with hiring a global team. Businesses who work with us enter new markets confidently and more quickly than they could on their own. There's a whole world waiting for you out there. Why not go after it?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we are excited to announce the winners of the U.S. National Finals competition. Fortunately, our judges had a couple minutes to tally up all their scores, and we're ready to get going and announce who is going to be taking home the big cash prizes tonight and who's going to get the opportunity to advance to the global finals, where they will be competing for up to $1 million in cash prizes and awards. And so we're going to announce our first place winner, our second place winner. Both of them will be guaranteed advanced spots in the global finals. And then we'll be announcing our third place runner up, which will be walking away with $5,000 in cash prizes. And with no further ado, our national US winner, first place, goes to Legacy. Very, very exciting to share that the Legacy team won an incredible pitch, a great business that they're building. That means Legacy now has $25,000 in cash prizes from the EWC national competition and is guaranteed an advanced spot to the global finals and a chance to compete for $1 million. Our second place winner is FarmSense, another incredible pitch. Really, really strong business that'll represent the U.S. very well on the Entrepreneurship World Cup stage. FarmSense gets $10,000 in cash prizes, as well as a guaranteed advance to the global finals. And finally, certainly not, last but certainly not least, our third place runner-up, I'm proud to announce, is Rubitection. Rubitection, a great transformative medical device company making big inroads in the area of bed sores, an area that needs a lot more focus and innovation. Rubitection will win $5,000 in cash prizes as a result of this competition, and we're really excited to see what comes next for the Rubitection team. And with that, Legacy and FarmSense will be advancing to the global finals to represent the U.S., a great group of companies, and we're really excited to see that competition, which will be starting before we know it. And with that, we have the U.S. National Finals complete. Another big shout out to the MISC Global Forum, the Global Entrepreneurship Network, and Tegel for making this possible, as well as our partners, Globalization Partners, Leighton and Brex, for always supporting the GSV Labs event series. I want to make sure everyone tunes in for the Global Finals, October 18th through 20th. Sign up for the Entrepreneurship World Cup platform. It's free, and you'll stay in the loop about events, activities, all the startups that are participating, and you'll get to see Legacy and FarmSense compete against dozens, nearly 100 other companies from across the globe for the Entrepreneurship World Cup. With that, I'm Alec Wright, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.